Okay. I share, but it was like three big.
All right. Hi. All right. Hi, everybody. It is 5:43. We're getting started a little later this evening. My apologies. I'd like to call the Teaching, Learning Equity, and Pupil Services Committee to order. Ms. Shope, could we get a roll call, please?
Yes. Greg Schneider is unable to be here tonight. Megan Miller
Present?
and Joanne Winfield.
Present.
All members except Greg Schneider are present.
Thank you very, very much. All right. At this time, would anybody like to move to approve the agenda for the evening?
So moved.
I'll second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Item 1D, approval of the minutes. Mr. Winfield, would you like to move to approve the minutes?
So moved.
I'll second. Let's see. Although, hang on a second. We're just going to roll with it. Ms. Shope, did I miss an attachment by chance for the minutes? Did I- Yeah, I must. Oh, because my person isn't filled in. That's why. Okay, my apologies. I was like, wait. I'm like, I feel like I looked at these and now they're gone. All right, so make sure everything's cool. All right, thank you for that. Thanks for clarifying. All right, all in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, let's move it on forward. That brings us to item 2A, restorative justice recommendation for renewal. Go ahead, Ms. Beavers. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Melissa Beavers, Executive Director of Pupil Services, and I'm here with Eric Weir, Director of Special Ed and Student Services. And we are back this evening to discuss the restorative justice recommendation for renewal, and tonight we are looking for action. So we're just going to do a quick review of the presentation that we gave at last committee meeting with a couple of added slides that directly address some of the concerns that were brought up at the last meeting. First, we just wanted to be very intentional about how the restorative justice work aligns itself with our strategic plan. As you guys know, we've got 5 priority areas, and really we are focusing on the whole child equity, culture, and leadership and engagement. And I won't read that directly to you, but you can see the braiding of the work that we're doing with restorative practices with our strategic plan there. And then just a quick reminder of what restorative practices is. This is one thing I think we haven't touched on a lot in our presentations, but there are really 2 different types of restorative practices. You've got community building practices and repair practices. It's 50-50. And community building is the community building circles. We're developing a sense of belonging and trust in the classroom, situational role playing, and reentry circles. That's community building. And repair typically happens after harm is done. And so this might look like a formal conference working together to resolve the conflict. Our hope is that the more we can implement community building circles, the less time we will have to spend on the repairing of the harm, the restorative circles. I'm going to pass it to Eric.
All right. We just also wanted to provide you guys with a couple
myths that we can dispel here in regards to what restorative justice is in terms of those two kind of practices that Ms. Beavers just kind of outlined. That first myth is that restorative justice is soft and there are no consequences. Well, that's not true, and we know that to not be true. Restorative discipline is rooted in high expectations and accountability. So what it does is it adds a layer of accountability for students and their actions, and has that expectation to repair the harm that may have been caused. It doesn't stop them from having consequences through the code of conduct, which moves kind of into myth number 2, that restorative justice gets rid of student removals and puts the full burden of student discipline on teachers. Restorative justice is another means of teaching and learning for our students. It's supporting students to make responsible decisions and being accountable for their actions. Restorative practices should be used in conjunction with discipline practices, again, adding that layer of addressing the harm and then healing in regards to the process. And then the last one, that restorative justice takes too much time and doesn't give the message that certain behaviors aren't tolerated. We know through a lot of research that punishment-based models actually take more time because those underlying needs of students are never met. And so we just constantly are readdressing the same behaviors and same issues over and over instead of being proactive and taking time to really support the students in their whole self growth within our schools. Last time we were here, there was some questions in regards to how this work maybe aligns with our social emotional learning and our social emotional behavioral screener. And so the next couple slides just kind of helps bring that connection together. So the two SEL universal curriculums that we use in the district are Purposeful People, and that's at our elementary levels, and then 7 Mindsets, which is in our secondary buildings. Both restorative justice and our SEL programs work to improve school culture and climate by strengthening student to staff, staff to staff, and student to student relationships. I read that backwards, sorry. Social emotional learning is the time that those explicit skills are taught, and then the restorative practices are techniques that support and allow students to actually work through and process through those universal skills that they get instructed on. 7 Mindsets does offer within its curriculum some direct alignment to this work. They offer a module that they call Safe Circles, and they offer a section in their curriculum called What's Poppin' Conversation Cards, which are just opportunities to expand upon restorative justice and restorative practices and how they relate to the mindsets of social emotional learning. So in this slide, I just wanted to share the 5 SEL competencies that we have here in the state, and then the key practice techniques that we see in restorative practices. This slide then breaks down how those are all kind of interbraided. So when you look at the 3 areas of restorative practices, you have effective language, the circles piece, and then restorative conversations. And you can see how the different 5 areas within the social emotional learning competencies fit in there. So effective language works on self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, etc. I won't read through each of them, but you can see how each of those 3 areas are working to support those SEL competencies. And then there was a specific question that was asked in regards to how this work maybe can be incorporated into SABRS, which is our current SEL screener that we use in the district. There is not a direct alignment between the restorative practices and SABRS itself. However, like we just kind of went over, there is a direct relationship between restorative practices, restorative justice work, and social emotional learning competencies, and that SABRS screener is aligned to the CASEL SEL competencies, which are aligned to our state Wisconsin SEL competencies as well. So in theory, we would start to see a decrease in the number of students identified as high risk the more we start to implement some of these restorative practices, specifically the ones that are rooted in those proactive behaviors with culture, building culture and community within a classroom in our school communities.
So this is just an overview of the work. As you know, we're in the middle of year 1 with our partnership with New Root. And year one, or we could even call it year zero, because we're really regrounding our leaders in the mindset of restorative justice and restorative practices and the use of common language. So this is 100% staff-facing at this time, and we've been working with one district team of roughly 50 people for year one or year zero. Years 2 and 3, what we're coming back for right now is staff and student facing, or staff, student, and family facing. And the implementation will now be from this one group of 50 into our 12 school buildings. And so there's essentially 12 building teams of roughly 75 people each that will now get the work for years 2 and 3. Just a quick review of the suggested scope and sequence of the work that we talked about at the last committee meeting. There's a component of professional development and then customized support in both years 2 and 3. And again, this is staff, student, and family facing rather than just staff facing. And like I said, both years will contain direct professional development and advanced professional development, as well as customized school support, which will include coaching and mentoring, as well as the parent engagement piece. And then just a breakdown of cost, years 2 and years 3, for a grand total not to exceed $609,800. And again, I just really want to emphasize that this is based on 12 school buildings. So like I said, not to exceed, because with the reconfiguration, we aren't sure, so we're basing this on 12 at this point in time. So looking ahead, what kind of shifts can we expect in years 2 and 3? We discussed this last time. School culture, we're going to expect to see an increased shift in school culture, increased teacher confidence, a sense of belonging for both of our groups of students and our adults in the building, a decrease of out-of-school suspensions, decrease in level of student infractions, and an increase of parent engagement with the use of restorative in the home, as well as being able to generalize the skills that are learned at school in the home. So just like we talk about with our strategic plan, what are the data streams or what are the metrics we're going to be using to measure success with the program? Like I stated, this year is year 1 or year 0 because we're really regrounding and building a foundation. And so any good initiative has to start with a good, solid foundation. And so we're hoping to see in years 2 and 3 these types of measures of success. So we're going to be looking at empathy groups or listening sessions. We'll look at our social emotional behavioral screener like Eric just mentioned, tiered fidelity inventories, attendance data, discipline data, and you can see what types of discipline data we will be looking at once we go student and staff facing in the 12 buildings. So our recommendation to the committee would be that we continue with New Route as our restorative justice partner for the 23-24 and 24-25 school year, not to exceed $609,800. And then we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, both of you, for this wonderful presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Winfield in a moment, but I just wanted to say how much I appreciate you incorporating the feedback from last time and addressing all of those points really very thoroughly. Thank you. Mr. Winfield, did you have anything? You're good? Cool. I have a lot of things to say, and they're all easy ones, so it's all cool. But I've been reflecting a lot on New Route and restorative practices. And back when I was a teacher here at the high school, I feel like it was probably one of the highlights of my entire teaching career that I got to go to UW Green Bay and get trained with Amanda Celine and Todd Greco and restorative practices for the PBIS team. And it absolutely was transformative for me as an educator. So I'm really happy to see this being pushed forward with such careful planning and fidelity and with great care. So I want to thank you for that. I really appreciate the year 0 piece. When I was on the CISA 2 board for the school board, I got to see a lot of presentations from other districts, and the ones that were most successful were the ones that took the very first year, whether you call it one or whatever, and they only focused on building a sense of understanding and support for their teachers and for the people who are going to help implement things. One study comes to mind. There was a Wisconsin Heights presentation that I saw a few years ago, and they had just like, what's the word I'm looking for? Just a huge increase in, it was like K through 3 reading, and it was through this very careful, like just they completely upended their whole, elementary education piece. And they did it for the entire first year without any ask on teachers to do anything with students. Like they really built that staff confidence. And from what I'm seeing here, we're doing that same approach. And we're already seeing, like you mentioned at our last presentation, positive indicators, maybe not like hard data yet, but indicators that that's working. So I want to commend you for that and I really appreciate that that's where we're going with it. One of my questions was going to be about community outreach, and you reminded me that that's already built into years 2 and 3, so that's fantastic. There's a common trope. I read BuzzFeed articles sometimes before I go to bed, and one that I just saw the other night was, why didn't they teach us this in school? And it's always the same kind of like, write a check, and a lot of stuff that we actually do teach in school. And one thing, it's like, if you think about like the world and what we need right now is we really need to lead with our values, and what we value first are our children, right, and of course our community. And without somebody creating space and taking the time to teach our children like how to build community and respect in their individual interactions and with each other, what do we expect to see in the world? And it's built right into, of course in the strategic plan, and you did a great job pointing that out, but even in our, we're trying to create, participatory global good citizens. And without directly instructing kids on how to do that and giving them practice and experience, what do we expect them to produce, right? So, I mean, this is just such a huge investment, not only in our children and, of course, in the community and culture in our school buildings, but also in the Beloit community and wherever our kids go to greater things, whether it's here or somewhere else, they're going to bring those values with them. So I just, again, want to just thank you for that. And then, I guess lastly, a little while ago, I was just playing with my 5-year-old. We were playing Candyland. And at the end, she beat me because, Mommy messed with the cards a little bit. She won. And she kind of, ha, 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 I won. And I said, Quinn, have you learned yet that that's not really a nice way? You could say nice game. Because she hadn't learned that yet. And without me telling her, hey, buddy, that's not how you do that, how are kids going to know, right? And so I just really appreciate that we're building right into, how we do business with children to teach them how to become, the best versions of themselves. So those are all the things that I had written down. I don't have really any other questions. You did a really great job touching on the metrics and the kind of the Sabres piece. So did you have anything else, Dr. Garrison or Mr. Levy?
When I think about restorative justice or restorative practices, we're trying to create opportunities for all of our students to learn differently. And self-regulation and different ways to have those conversations are very important. We have been identified as a school district in the past that needs improvement in the area of,
Disproportionality and discipline.
report, thank you. And
That's
so,
where this was grounded in. That's how this came about.
correct. And so I want to make sure I bring
Thank you.
attention to that as well.
Yep.
And so by the state, we have to do something. We have to address this concern in our school district. And not the fact that we haven't, but we also have to put something in place to say that we want to address it in an even greater way. And so this enhances that. I think we forget, that's a part of this conversation as well. There's some things that we've done, but this enhances that. So it's not an or in my conversation, it's an and. And so we have things in place that we have been working on, and we want to work towards making sure that our students have this opportunity as well. The goal, of course, at the end of the day is that we have, of course, less disciplinary issues in our schools, which has been a conversation in our system. I'm not going to shy away from that thought anymore, or not that I started either. But we have to have these conversations around what else can we do to make sure that we're all on the same page as it pertains to addressing sometimes the elephant in the room in our school district when we talk about discipline. And discipline for all students at times shouldn't be a cookie cutter response. Every kid is different. And so since every kid is different, we also need to understand that these are different options for all of our students. And this may work for a lot of our students. But even if it didn't, we still have other things in our toolbox to address the conversations around discipline in schools. And not to say this is just for discipline in schools. I think this is for a lifelong opportunity as well for our kids, as Mrs. Miller has mentioned. So I just want to make sure I added that thought because, again, this is something that we have to also address in our district disproportionality. And it's just time for us to have that conversation in a deeper way to bring the and, not or, to the conversation here in the school district of Beloit.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and everything you're doing to invest in our kids. All right, everybody's good. We're ready to make a motion. Mr. Winfield, do you want to make the motion?
I'll make the motion to take new route to the full board.
All right, so, do you, you got to put the amount in there. So there's if you want to read the recommended action up at, it's all right, up at the top.
Is that the?
I got you. Okay, so Mr. Winfield, are you moving to approve continued work with New Route Restorative Justice for the 23-24 and the 24-25 school years not to exceed $609,800?
So moved.
Second, thank you. Any discussion? Just thanks again. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, now you're good. Everybody's fine today. It's the second day of spring. Everything's great. Okay, so that takes us now to summer school, which is item 2B, 2023. And I think Ms. Moratek's going to come on up for that.
Okay, good evening. So I'm coming today just to have a presentation discussion so that I can come back the next time and move it to the consent agenda, trying to live within that window so we get to board approval before registration for summer school, which is April 21st. I say that all to say also, we are in this sort of waiting time period. We applied for the ESSER 3 summer school programming grant. I was told when we applied that we would hear near the end of March whether or not we received those grant funds. So this presentation is written kind of in between the lines there of that, and then also knowing some of those projects that we'll have potentially over the summer. So the next time we come to the committee, I'm hoping to have some updates on all things. So I just wanted to kind of lay that groundwork for you as I'm moving through this quickly. Okay, so summer school, always focusing on support and enrichment, credit recovery, and opportunity bridges. And then in the past, we had our 3 goals, and these are similar, right? Providing quality programming that offers opportunities for prioritized standards-aligned learning along with wellness and enrichment. Our second goal is to provide opportunities for face-to-face hands-on learning that includes student choice and high-interest activities along with flexibility and scheduling. Goal 3, provide equitable opportunity bridges that intentionally address proficiency in credit recovery and literacy in math. And then this 4th goal is based on that grant. And something that was beautiful about the grant is we had to use a rubric that identified high-quality summer programming. And the way in which it was already designed with our A-Path and We-Path, how we implemented it, already met a lot of that criteria. The reach, which was exciting, was to really begin to build partnerships and thinking through partnership opportunities and enrichment. There really was a press on not just academics, but wellness and enrichment, our We Path. So that made the grant writing easier and exciting because it was like, great, we already have some really good research-based, evidence-based groundwork for what quality programming looks like, and then now we can build. And so some of the highlights, this year we had to reduce it to 2 sites because of those potential projects that'll be happening. So we'll have at the K-8 building, we'll be at Fruzen, and then we have to move our high school to Aldridge. However, the athletic side of the building will be open because students have to travel back and forth. So we've been working out the nuances and kinks and transportation. So if you're at Aldridge and you might need a ride back to the high school, there'll be a busing opportunity there and so forth. And then also there will be additional WE offerings with that potential ESSER 3 funding if that comes through. But again, we will continue to offer those equitable opportunity bridges. I'm excited about that this year because now with American Reading Company and IRLA and School Pace, we can actually grab the data from spring to know who we're pulling out for those intervention groups over summer if they choose to participate in our academic path for summer school. And then the dates and times there, again, 2 sessions, 3 weeks each for parents at the elementary and intermediate grades, allowing people to sign up, throughout, of course. Our registration will be online as we move to previously last year, which I'm happy about. That was a little bit of a work the summer before that. And then, again, offering breakfast and lunch at the sites. Some additional logistics, just that registration's April 21st, and some of the other things that I mentioned there. We will have that condensed transportation. Now, something that's really kind of been born out of the spirit of the grant is extended day opportunities for our families. Someone like me that's a working mother needs all-day care during the summer. I can't stop and pick my child up at noon. So we've worked with Merrill, Boys and Girls Club, and, Welty. And there will be, through this, there will be buses available that will bus our kids to all 3 of those sites. And then there's some potential internship possibilities for our students. So we have kids that already in the high school work up at Welty through our Globe grant with our kids. So they will have some paid positions for internships at the Welty Center to support the groups that go there with. And I was really grateful for the director and being super flexible and changing their programming around. And then also at the Boys and Girls Club, there's some grow into opportunities with grant funding that we're looking at. One could be an internship where we're offering reading tutoring. So for example, students in the high school that are interested in doing that, ideally, right, ones that are in our early education pathway might want an internship over the summer to do reading tutoring over at Boys and Girls Club, like that type of stuff were the conversations we were having across partners. So I was really excited about that. And then in our high school, this is a typo, and I'll have it fixed for the next presentation. I'm sorry, that just, the Teresa Mortek, a person, this bothers, so I apologize. So the dates is the same as the elementaries, that start date. I apologize. And then same thing, the Opportunity Bridge, Algebra 1 and 2, we had those for grade 9. I was really thankful that was actually designed through Kelly Gorud and Ken Davis, those year-long Opportunity Bridges. So just really fabulous people in our district that are truly assets. And then again, that transportation will be provided if we're over at Aldridge to come over to athletics. And then we'll be coordinating with John Dupuy about the start times for students that are in athletics over the summer. Health and safety, of course, always following the handbook. It applies in summer school programming. We will have additional health clinics available for vaccinations. That will continue this summer as well. Budget. We really don't have a ton of funding needed to replenish things. It's just little costs because we did that big purchase of Lit Camp a couple years ago, so we're continuing to do that. We use Common Lit for the secondaries, which is actually, it's highly rated, and we use that in our secondaries, and then we built out themes with chapter books for some high interest reading. That's what that curriculum looks like. And then we always have to replace some manipulatives and things like that. And then at the end there's just that caveat to potential increased funds. Again, if we do get that funding, I, of course, applied for the maximum, which is $780,000, and it'll cover 2 years of summer programming. So then we'll have the revenue for the students that are coming in after that. The other thing I think is a beauty in reducing the sites is we want to offer it at more sites, but it is allowing us to reflect on, is it possible we've been overstaffed in the past with summer school? So another opportunity to kind of reflect and audit what we've been doing with potential savings. Then again, with ideas to grow into, these are some things that came out of the grant. We'll be offering a UW Foodwise class for our intermediate students, which is like healthy eating and healthy living choices. They'll be coming in. That was through Michelle Babilius worked that. We're talking about offering band and orchestra lessons in small groups with some of the teachers that are in our district. Driver's ed course, I've talked with Boys and Girls Club and possibly having that course over there and then paying for up to 15 to 20 slots for students to run through the driver's ed course, which I think he quoted me at was around $480. So we'll get kids free driver's ed through partnership with Boys and Girls Club. These are some grow into dream ideas, but we've planted some seeds, so I'm excited about it. And then, of course, we know Merrill Community Center does PBS Kids, that whole piece. So our kids that go over there will get that. Welty will be working with our students that go over there and always extending the environmental standards and programming that we already have connected with our STEM classes. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much for that presentation. Mr. Winfield, do you have anything?
Can I sign up for summer school?
Please.
Just the fact that it's funny because me and my daughter was talking and she was asking questions about if she goes to summer school, could she not have to take gym her senior year?
Oh, that's a good question.
I told her to talk to her counselor because just because I'm on the board don't mean I mean a lot. It would be nice if we can have that option for kids who want to get that course out of the way that
Okay.
summer and not do like a credit recovery or something else. That they just want to graduate and get those courses out the way. Ms. Mortek, I don't know if that's possible.
I will look into it. I do know we have a hard time in summer finding somebody that has that licensure to teach courses, but I will certainly look into it. I can't answer it off the cuff. I need to find out about the requirements for gym. There are like state requirements for that, but I'll look into it for sure.
appreciate it.
Because we'll be building out that course guide.
Okay. My last meeting is coming up soon,
Yes, sir.
but if you could, you know how to get in touch with me. I'm not far, so.
I will get in touch with you, Mr. Winfield.
Thank you.
I love it. Yeah, I want to go to summer school too. That's like super exciting. So I want to just quick clarify that I have this right. So like the sessions June 20th through July 7th and July 11th through the 29th, because I'm just going to say it in my report and make sure I got that right. All right, cool, perfect.
Correct.
Okay, wow. And I just want to I want to take a moment because especially with the aspirational grant stuff, so to write a $780,000 grant, I'm sure was like extremely time consuming, tedious. I'm sure you drank more coffee than I did today.
It's never an all one-person effort, so
No,
there's lots of
I know.
people
Yeah.
here that are working on that, so.
Totally.
Yeah,
props
but I
to the
appreciate it.
team. Well, and the reason I say that, I know, like, especially with the driver's ed, we had some people come and give some public comment and email us, and I know that there are more people that are interested in driver's ed than we heard from. And I mean, it's so I just want to just highlight and elevate, like, your good work here, because it's like, this is a great example of getting, feedback, and I know this is something that we've looked at anyway, but in addition, like, being able to be responsive like that, but it's not just like a flip of the switch, like, oh, we got an email, cool, we're going to try to do driver's ed with this grant. I mean, that's just like, I'm sure weeks of your life you'll never get back, and along with the people who worked on that as well. So I just want to fill that in for folks and just really appreciate that you took the time to bring that into the presentation, and obviously all the work that went into the grant. That's awesome. Love Common Lit. Use it all the time. I love that that's happening. Thank you. Yeah, all of this is amazing, and I'm excited for folks to start registering. You said April 21st?
Yes, April 21st.
Cool. Anything else that we want in the presentation for next time? Mr. Winfield, are you good? I forgot earlier to say Mr. Schneider is out of town at the moment, but he did email in prepared notes. And so back to the previous agenda item, he says he's fully in support of continuing with the restorative justice program, looking forward to updates on the effectiveness of the program, and he says he's in full support of the summer school program. He's excited about the optional things that you've included, and is looking forward to more expansion of offerings in the years to come. So everybody's excited.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so this is just for discussion tonight, right? So we don't have to take any action. Let me just double check that we're good. I think we are. All right, so pretty exciting evening this evening, and there is a recommended action in here, but it sounds like we're going to wait, right, till April? Yes. Cool. Well, we're going to move on then to next meeting date, item 3A. The next time the Teaching, Learning, Equity, and Pupil Services Committee will meet will be Tuesday, April the 18th at 5:30. Anything else before we close? All right. Would you like to move to adjourn?
So move.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 6:16. Thanks again, everybody.
Where's my Greg and my Spencer? Okay. Okay, well, I'm gonna borrow Greg's chair then.
You're welcome. I was in the right thing, but. I'm so mad that I can't find my hair clip.
You what?
I'm so mad I can't find my hair clip.
Oh.
Everybody's fine. I know, it's just, that's what's going down today. Anyway, Spencer is on his way to be here virtually, Sean. Spencer is on his way to be here virtually. I just got like 4 texts from him.
Aw.
Almost at the hotel. His phone is acting up. He'll join as soon as he gets there. Cool. Oofed. It is 6:30. Let's do this.
You all ready?
Always.
We're ready to rock and roll. I know this is like a whole like 1989.
Hello, spring.
Yeah,
You are welcome.
I love it. I was thinking this morning, I'm like, I don't think I can. Oh, my dryer broke, but it's fixed now. It's fixed now.
Okay, so can we come look at it?
There's some fun. Okay. I love it. So, okay, stop. There is a coming from South Beloit, and it's got a picture of a man with a plunger. And it says, come fix what your husband broke, and I thought of you.
Okay.
Or your wife.
Your mic is on.
No, Amy's mic is on.
Okay, I'm going to call to order the March 21st Human Resource Committee meeting, which is a committee of the whole, at 6:31 PM. Mrs. Shope, could we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Sorry. Brian Anderson?
Here.
Has Spencer Anderson joined us yet? Nope, but I believe he'll be joining us in a while. Amy Levy? Here. Megan Miller?
Present?
Greg Schneider is unable to attend. Joanne Winfield?
Present.
And Sean Levy.
Present.
So all members are currently present except Greg Schneider and Spencer Anderson.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Board Member Megan Miller and seconded by Board Member Amy Levy. All those in favor signify by saying, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Is there a motion for the approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved by Board Member Amy Levy and seconded by Board Member Brian Anderson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The motion passes unanimously. On to 2A, employment recommendations. A motion may be made to convene the Human Resources Committee into closed session pursuant to Section 19.85, parentheses 1, parentheses C of the Wisconsin State Statutes relative to considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises a responsibility. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved by Board Member Amy Levy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Board Member Miller. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Shope, will you give us a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Brian Anderson,
Aye.
Joanne Winfield,
Aye.
Megan Miller,
Aye.
Amy Levy,
Aye.
Sean Levy.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay, we will convene in closed session and then return for any open session questions or actions to be taken. The Human Resource Committee, a committee of the whole, has reconvened in public session in order to take any action, if necessary, on items discussed in closed session and to have open session questions as appropriate. Are there questions board members have or actions that board members would like to take? Oh, Board Member Levy.
Thank you. So just one quick question about additional pay percentages. So per policy 222.1 rule 2, temporary administration assignments of current employees may receive their daily average salary, also known as DAS, plus 5% to 15%. So my question is, and I don't need to see it in a moment or anything like that, but just wondering, is there a rubric or is there some type of criteria to decide where you would land for additional compensation for additional duties in that 5 to 15% range?
Yes, there is. There's instances where you have multiple individuals that are absorbing some of the responsibilities, say, of a teacher's classroom, and so the 15% is split evenly at 5% per, depending on the amount of the workload of the vacancy that is being backfilled by them is what determines the 5, 10, or 15%. In the case of individual, the amount of work that they're taking on place them at the 10%.
Thank you so much. That was my only question.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve exhibits A and B as presented.
Second?
Okay, there's been a motion by Board Member Brian Miller by Board Member Brian Anderson to approve exhibits A and B, and seconded by Board Member Megan Miller. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. All right. On to our next meeting date. Our next meeting date is Tuesday, April 4th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
It's been moved by Board Member Amy Levy,
Second.
seconded by Board Member Jawan Winfield. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned. Board Member Spencer Anderson, I think we see your icon.
I'm present.
Okay, we haven't started yet. We're getting ready to in a minute. A call to order the regular board meeting for March 21st, 2023 at 7:02 p.m. Mrs. Shope, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Joanne Winfield,
Present.
Megan Miller,
Present.
Amy Levy,
Here.
Spencer Anderson,
Present.
Brian Anderson,
Here?
Sean Levy,
Present.
and Greg Schneider is not available tonight. All members are present then except Greg.
Okay. The Board of Education would like to let our families and viewers know that our regular board meetings are being simultaneously interpreted. You can watch the Spanish interpreted meeting through the link found at the board website under the Watch Meetings tab with tonight's date. In order to accommodate this interpretation, we will be monitoring the pace of our meeting to allow time for the interpretation. And I'd like to remind our board members and others speaking to please speak one at a time. Thank you so much for your consideration and understanding. Is there a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Board Member Megan Miller and seconded by Board Member Joanne Winfield. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Board Member Miller, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
My pleasure. Good. Sorry. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Shope, do we have public comment?
We do have public comment. I don't have any emails, but I have people here that would like to speak.
Okay.
The first person I have is Teresa Johnson, as well as Isaac Johnson.
Okay, so I have to read our public comment note as we're all gathering. All right. Members of the public are welcome to attend all open meetings of the Board of Education. Robert's Rules of Order will be followed at all times. Individuals attending board meetings are expected to conduct themselves in a respectful and courteous manner that models appropriate behavior for our students. Individuals wishing to comment are expected to comply with the following norms in order to maintain a respectful and ordered meeting and to prevent discussion of confidential matters in a public forum. Comments should be directed to members of the Board of Education and not district employees, students, or other members of the public in attendance at the meeting. Speech that is belligerent, disorderly, disruptive, repetitive, or which exceeds the allowable time permitted for each speaker is prohibited. Concerns or questions that entail the disclosure of identifying information regarding specific students are prohibited. Response from the board, if any, will be limited to clarifying inaccurate information, seeking additional information from the speaker, or acknowledging that the speaker has been understood. The board will not debate with an individual, and the board may not take action on an item raised during public comment that is not on the meeting notice/agenda. The chair will interrupt and rule an individual who violates any of these norms out of order. If ruled out of order by the chair, the individual's opportunity to address the board will end immediately and the microphone will be turned off. Thank you for your participation and courtesy. Okay. Ready to receive comment?
Yesterday, the UN Secretary General said humanity is on thin ice and that ice is melting fast. This is a wonderful metaphor for many global issues: climate change, socioeconomic disparities, political discord, and even inequalities in education. This metaphor is that the foundations upon which we expect to stand and support us are the same foundations we humans have been weakening. There is no irony lost on me as we vote on a referendum in Beloit. Rock County is spending nearly $100 million on a new county jail. The proverbial school-to-prison pipeline is a literal drive north on Highway 51. The Beloit schools have been losing students and simultaneously have been meeting fewer state academic standards. The Beloit school-to-poverty pipeline is perpetuated by our district's denial and refusal to prioritize its budget to change this predicament. Now, I am aware some of you assume that because I am not in favor of this proposed referendum that I am working against you, or I am not in favor of our students. In fact, it is the opposite. I beg for my Beloit neighbors and families, go spend time in the Beloit classrooms. Talk to teachers and ask them how many hours they work beyond the contracted 40 hours a week. How much of their own money do they spend to supplement classroom needs? What resources could really make a difference in their classrooms? If they had one wish for their school, what would it be? If the answers are reflected in the referendum, vote for it. If not, don't. Failing schools and failing students are not created in an instant, but over time. Poor decision after poor decision, lack of prioritizing needs over wants, and loss of purpose. If the district is not willing to prioritize academic excellence and safe, secure schools, then it should be no surprise parents remove their students from the Beloit School District. If the issue of academics is not immediately addressed, we will be back in a few years looking at another referendum. I am all for saving public schools. However, the repeated poor decisions on how tax dollars are spent is not a burden the taxpayer can or should sustain. District and school administrators must make efforts towards this goal of improved academic achievement and success. Since the 2018-19 school year, the district has not scored above the meets few expectations rating. Since the 2013 school year, the highest rating the district achieved was 62.6, the lower half of meets expectations. Part of the problem contributing to these low ratings is the lack of district practices aligning with district policies. A student can attend Beloit schools and not have to turn in a single piece of work until they reach the 9th grade. Last year, teachers were required to give every student a minimum score of 50%. Students know that they will be promoted to the next grade level up to the 9th grade, no matter what, even if they get the 50% by doing 0%. Now let's imagine if we remove the nice-to-have items from the facilities referendum and use that money to hire classroom paraeducators. The $3 million could pay for 227 paraeducators at $20 an hour for 4 hours a day for 165 days instruction. But where would we find these paraeducators? Here. And yes, there are people willing to work part-time temporary jobs. Even with the recent low unemployment, the city of Beloit is still among the top 3 highest in the state. The district has an impressive 925 volunteers. I imagine some would consider working part-time for the district. $400 a week would be a game changer for some Beloit families. One paraeducator for a classroom would be a life changer for some students and some teachers. A state score of 70 exceeds expectations would be a game changer for the school district of Beloit. The district has said they will continue to have referenda until one passes. I hope people will vote this one down and ask for a referendum focused on academic improvement. I would gladly accept and campaign for a mill rate of $10 if the district had and maintained high academic achievement. Because I know every well-spent dollar invested in education has a greater return value, and the benefits far exceed financial. There are several global issues our youth will have to face in the near and distant future. Let's prepare them to have the ability to handle any situation they may face. Let's start by strengthening our educational foundation they will need to stand on. Congratulations, Dr. Garrison, on your first 100 days.
Thank you.
Next, I have.
Just a minute. That expression is out of order. We don't congratulate and clap during our public comment.
I apologize.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't know congratulations was out of order. What?
No, what I'm going to, just stop, please. Listen. We don't have a problem with public comment. I read what the norms are. But we will not be out of order and unruly. No parts of it. Thank you for your comments. Next public comment.
Yes, I have, pardon me if I don't say the last name right, but I have Jacob Droog and Josh Peterson Droog and Joshua Droog.
Is there being a yielding of time to add time to this original speaker?
Okay.
Right, that's what I assumed happened with the last one.
Okay.
Okay. Is that 6 or 9?
If there's 3 of you and the 2 are yielding time to you, that's 9.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do you want to speak too, or you can yield time and I go? I'll just go. Okay, I appreciate that.
You may begin.
Okay, so we have moved to Beloit around 4 months ago. We left Idaho because of the lack of diversity, tolerance, and acceptance there for our families. However, since we have started up Frozen, our kids have been subject to civil rights violations, including discrimination in education and hostile learning environments. For example, one child who is Black and is perceived by the students to be members of the LGBT community because he has gay parents has been called racial and homophobic slurs on a weekly, if not daily basis. For example, today I just found out during recess he was beat up while being called the F word and other homophobic slurs and inappropriate sexual innuendos. This was not reported to us. However, what was reported is that he had a pretty good afternoon, but a rough start to the morning. We have multiple emails requesting support for the staff. We have emailed the teachers, psychologists, counselors. We've even emailed Dr. Garrison. We've emailed everyone we could think of with no resolution in sight at this moment. He has, and this was one incident I thought was a unique scenario, but he was even beaten and had a concussion, thrown on the ground, bruising on the face, head, goosebumps, not reported, and because the bell had rang, not given to the nurse. So he went to after-school care with a migraine. He came home crying because his head hurt. The doctor was worried about concussion and bleeding behind the eye. I thought that was a unique case. However, today, once again, I was informed that someone stabbed him in the back with a pencil multiple times, puncturing his skin and leaving bruising. He had to go to the teacher, escorted him out, got investigated by the nurse this time. No reporting to the parents, but did report to the police officers. We did not know about any of this until he came home from after school and I took him to Scouts. So that happened today. Why do I consider this civil rights violation? Because it's inactions against a person belonging to a protected class. A couple protected class in that, being part of the LGBT, even though a perceived member of it and also being Black. We don't just have one school there, we have multiple schools. We have another child who is transgender, who was pulled into the boys' bathroom because she reported that they were vaping in the bathroom the day before. She was pulled in there, beaten up, thrown out. She reported it again. The next day, she was on the playground. This is 7th grade playground. Beaten up so bad that her shoes do not work anymore. The school informed us and said, can you please bring in shoes? She doesn't have shoes anymore. We were not informed of the cause of the lack of shoes. We were just informed that there were no more shoes present. Once again, inactions by a protected class is happening at Frozen Elementary. I also have another daughter who has been physically pinched by her white male school teacher. She freaked out. She ran to the resource lady because she felt that was inappropriate. We have taught her that there is good touch and bad touch, and she felt that was bad touch. We have reported this. I have not seen well, according to your guys' policies and procedures, when there are claims of discriminatory behavior, there should be an investigation, and that investigation should be followed up with conclusions. That gives us as parents the right to petition those conclusions. I have not seen any of those investigation or conclusions to this date. So Paul Sherman, so I reached out finally to Paul. Paul works for the Wisconsin State Superintendent. He says, such conduct as it appears is based on the protected class status of your child, may be a type of discrimination which is prohibited by both state and federal law. A school district with knowledge of such conduct must take steps reasonably calculated to end the conduct. Under Wisconsin law, a parent may file a discrimination complaint with the school district. On receipt of the complaint, the school district will conduct an investigation and issue a written determination. The written determination is appealed here to the DPI if the parent is unsatisfactory with the results. I have been fighting this, we have been fighting this for 4 months. I have not seen a single report. So it seems like we do have procedures in place, but someone's not following that. I want and I request that you guys consider a formal investigation to each of these allegations of civil rights violations, each occurring. I have one of my kids documenting daily each and every single one. I also, I just want my kids to go to school, to learn, to be safe. And we left Idaho because it was not safe from a political climate. Wisconsin showed us, when I saw Beloit, it said diversity, inclusion, acceptance. I have seen the diversity, I love that. What I haven't seen is safety. So that's all thank you for your time.
Just to clarify, because we have spoken about your situation, as there has been correspondence to board members and the direction to the administration, following the policies that we do have, you will receive a response, as Dr. Garrison and the administration will carry that out to address your concerns. Thank you for making that known. Are there more comments?
Yes, I have John Peterson.
Good evening. I'm John Peterson. I live up on Turnberry. I'm a hockey dad. My children both graduated from Beloit. One is in the Marine Corps. One is over at Scott Forge. He's been at Scott Forge since he was 16 years old, and he was in the internship program through this great program they had with Mr. Burmeister over there, and he's still there, and he's doing really well. Craig is doing great too out in the Marine Corps. But my thing is about standards. Our standards have dropped in the Beloit School District. Way back in the day, in the 50s and 60s and 70s and early 80s, until it started going downhill, they had good curriculums. Those curriculums they used over and over and over and over again. They memorized their multiplication tables through 12. They learn to print, and write cursive writing. Those things retain muscle memory, a number of other great things that make us last as we go through life, through all the memorization we do. This curriculum they have here now doesn't memorize anything. We don't memorize dates anymore. We can look it up. We don't memorize this. When all of this shuts down, if we don't have pen and paper and we don't have our memories, all of it will go away. And then only the people in charge will be able to say, you can do this or you can do that, because everybody else will have no knowledge. It's on the school board to hold them to that. But now, on to safety. He's right. We've had, I don't know how many incidences at schools with fighting and all these other things. And you have a ton of money. You could put a camera in each opposite corner of every room, and you could actually go ahead and start enforcing discipline on the students. And those that are the bad eggs, no offense, it's probably 1 out of 40. But you pull them out, and you have to set them aside because you hold back the rest of the group. And you cannot allow the body to die for the finger. It's like cancer. Everybody hates it. I will say it though. You cut away the cancer. You want to take it away. You want to nurture it. You want to heal it afterward. But you can't let the rest of it go down. And we need to do that for all of our students. That's all I got to say. Have a great day, guys. Please make sure you do something about it. You got the money to do it. Make the school safer.
Thank you for your comment. Any other public comments? All right.
I might have one. Nope, that's it. That's the end of them.
Reports to the board. We have no student reports or receive our superintendent report.
Hey, President Levy.
Yes.
If it was okay, I wanted the gentleman who just spoke, if he can give me the definition of a bad egg. I'm just curious.
Are you seeking clarifying information?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Michelle.
Problems in today? You can't understand those kind of connotations in speech.
Just stop. Gotcha. Let it go.
Sorry for the short delay there, but again, thank you all for being here tonight. One of the things that in my superintendent's report, I will go over a few things. One, just kind of general snapshot of the previous 2 weeks of some of the things that I've been working towards, and then I'll have another conversation as pertains to our presentation with our reconfiguration conversation. So I've had numerous conversations as pertains to the referenda. I've had conversations at the Beloit Public Library, Beloit Chamber Board, League of Women Voters, Community Actions, conversations at the State Line Boys and Girls Club, Beloit 200, Beloit Area Retired Teachers Association. I've held reconfiguration sessions as well throughout these past 2 weeks. I've also met with some other individuals in the community. I had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Anderson regarding our governor's budget proposal. I've met with Stephen Smith at Community Health and just some other people overall here in the school district. I have always had great conversations with community members. In my calendar, I try to make sure that there's opportunities for community members to come in and have conversations with me. As the gentleman did mention, ma'am did mention, I did just cross the 100-day mark. And again, I'm happy to know that I've been serving in this capacity as the school district superintendent for a little over 100 days now. Now, naturally, I didn't count any of the weekend days, and so that'll kind of put me over if I was to do that. But again, I did have, I want to say thank you to the board, the community, teachers, administration, everyone who has been very welcoming to me in this conversation. And I know that we have some differences and some things that we need to work on here in the school district. I think the missing equation in some of this conversation is time. Time is, there's always a right time to do some things, and I think the right time is now. We are making some changes. We will make some additional changes as pertains to our academic improvements. And I know I've been hearing this conversation around discipline and safety. And let me just say this, I truly believe that we do have great classrooms and we do have great opportunities for our students to be successful here in our school district. And when there are times in which we do need to make some changes, we do want to make those. And so that is my goal as a superintendent here in the school district of Beloit. I want to make sure people know that and hear that from me as well. If we haven't met the mark for whatever reasons, that's not our goal, okay? And I'm saying it as the superintendent. We do want to meet the mark. But when we do meet the mark, I also want to hear that too. I think that's also very important because a lot of times we do settle some things, we do work some things out, we do make some great decisions. And it'd be nice to hear some of those opportunities as well here in our school district. So I just want to make sure I put some of that on the table as well. Again, thank you for my ability. Thank you for you allowing me to be here in this service capacity. And I do want to make sure that we meet, again, all the needs of our students, families, and community members as we move forward here in the school district of Beloit. With that being stated, I also want to kind of give a snapshot of over the course of this past, I want to say, since I arrived on the conversation around our reconfiguration. And I'm going to ask Mrs. Shope to kind of press the go button on it for me. Thank you. So we have had school community conversations as pertains to our reconfiguration. Here is just a list of opportunities in which we've had for people to come in and have conversations with the reconfiguration. I've met in every building. I've had some virtual sessions, and I have also had some conversations right here at the KEC around our reconfiguration. Thank you. Naturally, when we're talking about reconfiguration, we have to think about kind of where we are. And just to give a snapshot, back in February, I do believe our board did agree to our new grade band configuration, where we'll be going to K3 through 5th grade, 6, 8, and 9, 12 here in the school district for the 2022-2023 school year. And so when we did that conversation, that automatically put some thoughts around what's going to happen to some of the middle schools, because we're removing 2 grade levels from the middle school and we're returning those students back to the elementary schools. And so naturally, there's going to be some gaps in our middle schools as pertains to our population. You can advance the slide. The retirement of facilities, you can advance the slide as well. The retirement of facilities policy is 990. Feel free to go on our policy website and look at that. A lot of this information that I'm about to share with you right now has already been stated. I like to make sure that the very clear picture is painted when we're having conversations about anything that I'm presenting. And I believe, as it's been stated, we have had declining enrollment. Now, the reconfiguration's number one thought is that we've had declining enrollment. And when you have declining enrollment, we have to start having additional conversations around what else could we do to possibly address our declining enrollment. And as you can tell, since 2016-17, on this chart, we've had declining enrollment. You can advance the slide. Thank you. This conversation here just takes a quick snapshot of our open enrollment conversation. We have families that live here in our school district and choose to go elsewhere. And we also have families that don't live here in the school district and choose to come into our district. Now with this blue line here, the blue levels, we want more of the blue than the red, if in a nutshell. This information can, again, be found in different presentations that I've done. Advance the slide, please. This is just a snapshot of this year as far as it pertains to open enrollment. And as you can tell, again, we've had this increase in our elementary levels with some peaks here in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and of course here in 9th, 10th, and 11th, and 12th grade. And so naturally, when you're talking about open enrollment, you also have to understand that, we get per pupil expenditures, and we don't want any of our kids leaving our school district, duly noted. And I want people to understand that's not our goal here in the school district of Beloit. I believe that we have really had to address this conversation with this grade band conversation, because what was happening in a lot of different spaces is when we went to this conversation about 10 years ago, for the lack of better words, there were split sides in the conversation as it pertains to whether or not we should do this. It did pass, and for what it's worth, again, we've been in this conversation for about 10 years, our current configuration. You can advance the slide. But this did allow us to really start honing in on what do we want to do differently. And so when I got here right away, we had the conversations and we put these conversations into motion. And so I have not just been here, waiting 100 days to do the work that's needed in our school district. I have actively been having conversations around what do we want to look like as a school district, not just now, but 3 to 5 years, 10 years from now, and moving forward. What you see here is our 4K enrollment trends. Naturally, this is very important. As a note, we have about 500 or so births in a year here in the city of Beloit, school district of Beloit, in the city of Beloit. And as you can tell, we bringing in about 303 of those babies as of 2022-23 school year. Now, I got to be honest with you again. We want the 4K babies, right? Because 4K can really determine a lot of conversations as it pertains to where your numbers will be in the future. And so if you can look back to that 2016, 2017 school year, you'll see about 489 babies that were coming into our school district. If you was to multiply that number, let's just say round it up by 500 times 14 years, now you're talking about 7,000 students. Overall, again, I round up to 489 to 500 times 14. That's how many years the babies are in school. You get about 7,000. And that's a pretty strong number for the school district of Beloit, but that's also the same 2,000 that we've lost. That makes sense? And so I really want to make sure people understand that the connection between 4K and kind of your overall district enrollment trends over time. Now, it is based off of the data, and a lot of things that people are sharing are things that I've already stated too. So if you've heard this before, again, it's because I've stated it. And so I think that's also very important to note, like, this information is coming from the school district. And I think it's very important to know that it's coming from me. I'm giving the information to the public because I want people to know this is kind of where we are. And again, we want to get better, especially in not just in our enrollment trends, but again, bringing our families back to the school district of Beloit. We do believe that there will be a plateau in this conversation. I shouldn't say we. I believe that there will be a plateau in this conversation. I would hope others believe that as well. I do believe there's going to be a plateau in that conversation where our enrollment trends will not continue to see that sharp decline, and we'll level off, and then of course to return to that conversation of increased enrollment. That's going to take some dedication and not necessarily hard work, but dedication to our process. And the process is currently that we want to address the conversations of our families deciding to remove their babies really in that 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade years, heavily in those 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade years, to say, you know what, now your babies will be able to stay in elementary school and go right down the hallway and set up a transition year into the middle school. Now, another thing that we need to note is the 3rd to 5th grade growth conversations. When you're thinking about the data as pertains to our overall achievement scores, one could argue that when we made this big shift, it's hard to capture growth from 3rd to 5th grade when your 4th grader is now in a different building. Teachers, it's hard to collaborate. It's hard to really have that back and forth around what does our kids actually need, because the kids are going off to a middle school. Now we're returning back to that conversation. I honestly believe that we'll be able to capture growth a lot better when we have that K3 to 5th grade conversations knitted back into our traditional makeup here in the school district. You can advance the slide. The next 4 slides, naturally I had conversations about this reconfiguration in all 4 of our middle schools. Naturally, these are just pictures in general of the buildings. But in those conversations, I went over this same information, but I also started to have conversations around, since we know we're going to have impact in our middle schools, where we'll have about 260 kids in the 4 middle schools on average, that leaves us with 4 very small middle schools. Since we're returning back to a traditional, one could argue a traditional grade band setup. And so since we're having the 260 on average in all 4 in the middle school, that does bring us to the conversations around reconfiguration even more. The school board and myself have, and of course, when I say that, we have had these conversations around, okay, well, if this is happening, naturally we can't have 4 buildings with 260 students in them. And we know that our buildings can hold anywhere from 900 up to 1,300 students. And so naturally, that's a natural conversation. Currently in our buildings, we have 5 grade levels with, let's just say, on average, about 450 students in those buildings. And we're still not meeting capacity conversations. That makes sense? And so when you're having the conversation about declining enrollment, numbers in buildings, grade bands changes, you have to think about, is this a healthy opportunity for our district to have the conversation about repurposing school buildings? You can advance the slide. And so when I'm in the buildings, naturally we have these conversations. I want to make sure I put some things on the table. Some of the questions that came out was, is the school district going to close and sell the 2 middle schools that are being repurposed? And let me explain that real quick. I'm talking with my hands all on the screen there. Like, ooh, sorry about that. Let me put my hands down. Yeah, naturally, I'm sitting on my fingers now. Naturally, when you're thinking about repurposing buildings, and there's been conversations around like what buildings will close. Naturally, that's a conversation that will naturally happen. I've made the statement that we want to have at least 2 middle schools moving into the 2023-24 school year. With that being stated, there's 3 major concepts one could consider. We can, based off of the 260 and all 4 middle schools, you can have 1 middle school, because we do have a building that can fit all students in that 1 middle school. You can have a school on either side of the school district, okay, because we have, 2 schools on the east side, 2 schools on the west side for middle school. Or you can have 2 schools on the same side of the school district, because we have 4 middle schools. So those are the 3 main options that we would be looking at, okay? As we kind of look at our questions, it's kind of what we see here. Naturally, I'm not going to read those to you, but we did kind of address some of these questions in general. You can advance the slide. Additional wonderings were, are any elementary schools closing? We're not planning on closing any of our elementary schools for the 2023-24 school year. And again, we've also had conversations about transportation. You can advance the slide. So in the sessions, this is just a report to the board of kind of what we've been talking about. In the sessions, I really had people kind of sit down and kind of work through some possibilities for those repurposed buildings. And then, of course, if you didn't want to think about the possibilities for those repurposed buildings, you could just ask questions on the team activities that we were doing. Regardless, you can advance the slide. The next 2 slides will show, I'm sorry, these slides, you can stop here. There were some possibilities and questions that we had to address. Naturally, when I say had to address, from those conversations, these are some of the snapshots that came from the sessions, whether it be possibilities and or questions. In most of these conversations at each building, I was able to address these conversations at each building. For tonight, again, these are just some snapshots from the presentations. You can advance the slide. We were able to capture a lot of the posters, of course, that everyone was able to work on. And then the next slide also shows just a general presentation information. This conversation here is not, tonight, so we're not going to be making a recommendation for the reconfiguration, but I did want to make sure the board knew that we did have all these conversations. We have collected some information from them. And you can advance the slide, on the April 4th conversation will be where I will make a proposed reconfiguration recommendation to the board to discuss. That's just a real quick snapshot. That is my superintendent's report, along with the reconfiguration conversation, along with addressing some of the just thoughts here in the room tonight. So again, thank you so much, board.
Board members, are there any questions? Okay. All right.
You can take it off.
Okay. Because I won't waste an opportunity. So again, Dr. Garrison, thank you for the presentation. Summarizes where we're at. We hit 4 things. 1, you described our declining enrollment. We've already had conversations about student achievement, and I know there's some other things that are there. Safe learning environments and financial stability. Even before you got here, in short order, because sometimes this resetting is necessary, the district worked on a strategic plan where we had priorities. We understood that even as we were working on that strategic plan, that there were financial things that would need to be addressed, so finance is a part of the strategic plan. We had to hire a superintendent. Some people wanted us not to hire a superintendent, but we had to hire a superintendent to create that stability and leadership. We did hire a superintendent, and the reason that we hired a superintendent in the fall, in the summer and leading to the fall, was because we knew in the spring we would have to address finances, which goes along with the referendum conversation, along with the decline in enrollment because we're serving 2,000 less students, and we have about 850 employees. So those conversations that you're having about reconfiguring the district, they play into that right sizing, school closures, how are we working with serving 2,000 less? So as you've outlined, those conversations have been had with the community, even to the financial conversation about the referendum. What's been presented to the community is this is the financial status of the district, where we're at in some of the decisions that need to be made. I do know that some people would like that these decisions are made sooner, but there is a process and an order that we are working in so as not to cause shocks to our system or further instability. So can you speak to just give a narrative, kind of explain with all those things in the air, and of course the day-to-day operations, because people want to know that their children are safe in the schools that we have. And there are going to be issues that come up because they're kids and people. There are policies to address those things. But kind of with that narrative, because that's all the work that we asked you to jump into in November. You've been here 100 days. Just kind of map out so people understand where we're going.
So, thank you, Board President Levy. One of the things that I think is very important in any school district is to really focus in on, kind of where we want to go. And so naturally, with our finances, we were, and again, I'm gonna give a real high-level overview. We were at a deficit conversation, and we were without a business service person in our district for over a year. I worked real feverishly to find somebody, and we were able to bring in somebody here over the past 2 weeks, Mr. Rob Shady. So it was a very important conversation because when you're having financial conversations, it's very important to have somebody who is in the finance department. And so that's one of the things that I immediately started to work on. Another thing that we really worked on was, again, this referenda conversation. Naturally, that decision it wasn't in isolation. It was a decision that needed to be made based off of the needs of our school district. We have to also understand that this calendar year, is the only time that we can ask the question for a referenda is now. There's no other opportunities in the 2023 calendar year. That makes sense? And so the next opportunity that we would get to ask for support would be in the November election of 2024. So I believe that some of those conversations were naturally being had before I even got here, which prompted us to say, why not try to go to referendum now for some of our needs, in which that's why we went to referenda. Not just that, but of course, again, based off of some other needs for our school district. When we still covering the money conversation. Naturally, we also, sorry.
Right. Well, just in that money conversation again, you could also speak to the budget cycle. Sure. With our finance department being empty for over a year and a half and people leaving, one of the things that we notice as a board is that when it comes to the right size in the district, there are certain decisions that need to be made at a certain time, and that information was not presented to us. So address the budget cycle that's in place and some of the decision points that you put for us to be able to make these decisions so that they can have effect in our upcoming budgets.
Sure. So naturally, thinking about the budget again, we want budget cycles. We want to be able to talk about budgets as we kind of are mapping out a school district. And so what I did was, with our consultant, I sat down and I said, hey, we need to put together a budget cycle where we can actually have certain things approved, along with having some budget one-on-one conversations for everybody. And I think a lot of people have been benefiting from our budget conversations around kind of what a budget looks like for a school year, what does it actually entail, what needs to be approved, what doesn't need to be, doesn't need to be approved right now. The steps of balancing a budget is very, very complex. And so in those budgeting conversations, naturally we start looking at the possibilities around the reconfiguration and making certain cuts. Layoffs based off of right size in our school district based off of declining enrollment. So to me, there was a process in all of this that I had to come and start to lead here in our school district, and we just happened to be at the 100-day mark in all these conversations. I do think it's important to know that you have to have leaders in certain spaces to do this work. As a board, yes, you are the governing body, but you need people to help do this work in the schools, and having not just my position in place, but other positions in place in our district, especially as pertaining to finances, is very important. And so, not to belabor the thought, But we had to have conversations around certain thoughts here in our district around right sizing our district. We've also had conversations around early retirement. We've also had conversations around possibilities of saving money in our insurances. We've also had conversations around contracts. All of these opportunities actually help save money for our school district, but it has to be led by the leaders, in this case myself and the business manager. And so from a budgetary perspective, we've done a lot of things already to address these conversations around budgetary constraints. It has always been my goal to have a zero, of course, a balanced budget before I even got here, because that's what I'm, be honest with you, what I'm used to working from. And so I want to continue that thought here in the school district of Beloit, but some things do take time to get there. And so that's the budgetary conversation. Now we have conversations around academics and behavior. Those conversations are not left off of the board. To me, they're running simultaneously, but I also have to put focus on kind of where we are right now. Discipline in our school district has been an ongoing conversation. Now, it's not new, because I think people have been, using the discipline word as a way of saying, well, we're out of control, but not necessarily addressing the true conversations which we need to have, which is, again, more conversations around restorative practices, engaged classrooms. It's a partnership in this conversation, so it's not just what we're not doing, but it's also a partnership around what we want our students to learn through our own opportunities of teaching. And of course, we need partners with our parents as well. And so this is not just an isolated conversation. This is a together conversation. And unfortunately, there's been more separation in this conversation than us coming together. And that's kind of what I'm here for, to make sure that we can address some of these thoughts together to move the pendulum forward. Now, we've had some successes in our discipline data. We've reported on that, but you don't necessarily hear that conversation as much. And so I have been trying to address that conversation as well. But as soon as I say we're making some improvements in an area, naturally there's additional conversations around where we can get better. And so I believe there has to be a balance to the both of them, how we're getting better, and of course, where we need to make improvements. I've stated this before, and I will state it again. I will not be a superintendent that will just sit here and focus on all the things that we need to do to get better, that we're doing wrong. I just won't be that superintendent. I believe there has to be conversations around both. So in a nutshell, again, that's kind of where we are, and that's kind of where we're going.
Any other board members, questions, comments? Okay. All right. BMHS Jazz Orchestra finalists in Essentially Ellington competition.
And so Mr. Behrens is here with us tonight to kind of give us a quick snapshot of some of our successes. I think our academic and overall social successes in our school district are not far and few in between. We have great things happening here in our school district. And so I'll turn it over to Mr. Behrens to share some of our successes with our jazz band.
Thank you. President Levy, members of the school board, Dr. Garrison, thank you for having me here tonight to speak about the Beloit Memorial Jazz Orchestra. And as you've probably all heard by now, we're once again have been selected as one of the 15 finalist bands out of 102 applicants this year to participate in the 28th annual Essentially Ellington Finals, held at Jazz at Lincoln Center in New York City on May 11th through the 13th. This is our 11th time we've been selected as a finalist in the past 15 years. And this visit will also include a trip to Harlem to eat at the world-famous Red Rooster, a gig at a New York jazz club, seeing a Broadway show, and paying our respects to Duke Ellington at his resting place in Woodlawn Cemetery. Obviously, the main thrill of this trip is the festival and competition itself. Students will get to spend 3 days at Jazz at Lincoln Center, which is a special place designed by the great trumpet player Wynton Marsalis. Here they will meet the members of the other 14 bands and make lifelong connections with other musicians that share the same passion for jazz. They also get to meet and collaborate with members of the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra through sectional workshops, a dinner, jam session, and a rehearsal. And our big day will be Friday, May 12th at approximately 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time as we take the stage, and you'll be able to see that here back at home, live streamed on jazz.org. I've been really fortunate to have had this opportunity 10 times, and I'll be making now my 11th trip, and I know lots of other directors who try year after year to make it into the finals and have yet to receive an invite. So it's an extremely competitive competition. So how do we do it? How does a little town from Wisconsin compete against these all-star community bands, performing arts schools, and organizations with unlimited resources? How do we compete with that? And how do we get in? Well, I'd like to talk briefly about that, and is also what this experience has meant to our music program as a whole. It was 2007 when another band director heard our jazz band perform at a festival in Illinois. And after our performance, he came up, congratulated us, and said, you know, have you guys ever thought about entering the Essentially Ellington competition? And I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. So later that summer, I was sent some recordings from this director and some scores to look at, and some Ellington repertoire to take a look at. And my first reaction was, yeah, right, how is this possible for high school students to perform this music that was specifically written for some of the greatest jazz musicians in the world, in the history of the music? In addition, his music is not in a normal or easy key most times, and you would find like in the regular musical arrangements that we had been playing up to that time. It requires members of the saxophone section to play clarinet at times. It asks the trombonists to play in extreme registers, and calls for brass players to make use of a plunger. All things unique to the Ellington Band. Bottom line, this music is extremely difficult to play. But I didn't give up. I started listening to some of the recordings and videos of other high school bands that had been to the competition. And I began listening to Duke Ellington's music and studying the scores. And in January of 2009, we sent in our first set of recordings to be evaluated. About 3 weeks later, on a cold day in February, I received a phone call during my prep, and it was Jazz at Lincoln Center calling to inform me that we had made the finals for the first time. So how did we end up playing this music that I once thought would be impossible to perform? I learned a valuable lesson as a teacher. Students can do amazing things if only they are given the chance and resources to succeed. And you also need to build a culture of success and community. We brought in clinicians from all over the Midwest to give us feedback. We started traveling more to other jazz festivals. We spent lots of time together, even rehearsing during the summer months. But most of all, we listened like crazy to Duke's music. You can ask any one of the jazz members, you know, what type of jazz music did they enjoy the most, and most of them are going to say they love playing Duke Ellington's music. It has a very unique sound, a sound that is almost addictive, and that once you hear it, you want to hear more. And it's extremely challenging to play, which is also important. Students enjoy being challenged, and when successful, the reward can be a special end-of-the-year trip to New York. Little did I know how much that first trip to New York would impact the jazz program moving forward. Our one jazz band at the time used to rehearse on Monday evenings and 2 mornings a week before school at 7 a.m. So after our 5th trip to Essentially Ellington, I proposed that the jazz band be a curricular class for credit. And so now we have 2 jazz bands that meet during the school day for credit. Every summer, we have dozens of students now attending jazz camps. We have lunchtime jam sessions. We travel to New Orleans every other year to visit the birthplace of jazz. But probably the best thing that has come out of Essentially Ellington and the program's success is the Rock River Jazz Camp. It's a 1-week summer jazz camp for middle school students taught by the members of the jazz orchestra. And this was an idea that was solely their own and a way to create a legacy and give back and share their passion for jazz with younger students. I currently have some of those first Rock River Jazz Camp attendees going to New York for the first time this May in the band. So there's a little background and the importance of this trip and its profound impact on our students. And on behalf of the students, I would like to thank you for recognizing our achievements this evening.
All right. Dr.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Behrens, for that deep history around our program. I think one of the things that's important to note again is that we have to balance both of our academic successes. And yes, this is an academic success if you ask me. Naturally, you know, I was in the band. Shameless plug. No, it's not a plug. I did play the saxophone. I have, you know, some skills with that. I haven't picked it up in about 20 years, but I still have skills with the saxophone again. But thank you so much for providing this information. And again, we look forward to continue supporting our students in this opportunity.
Right. Welcome.
Other board members?
No questions, but congratulations. Really fantastic job for you and the students.
I just really obviously echo, and I just really appreciate what you said about investing in kids because, you know, it's all about high expectations, and what you invest in people is what you get back, and that's a real credit to you and your work. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll just echo that and just say, you know, I agree. Congrats on, you know, a significant achievement over a long period of time. And from someone with zero musical ability, I really appreciate when someone has that kind of talent. So I look forward to it continuing.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Behrens. I do have a question for you. So from the 11 out of 15 years we've been there, and like what you provided was great. One of the things that I would like to say to you is that as a board member and on behalf of the community, we're thankful for your work, to recognize you as a teacher for what you have put into it with our children. And as an example, because of the size of our district and our structure, being at the high school, you're like at the top of what we're trying to build. Yeah. And I think it demonstrates that with the right people and the effort, as you described, the resources and the dedication and the hard work, that we can have good things for our children in Beloit.
Absolutely.
You know, I wasn't fortunate to play jazz. I picked up the violin in 3rd grade and had to play that to 8th grade because my mom bought it. But I'm very thankful for the music education that I had in the school district of Beloit. We've talked over the years as we have worked to make some of the things happen that need to happen in the district for our programs to be what yours are. So we're thankful for your efforts, and that is what we are trying to do for all of our kids, to provide them excellent academic opportunities and an excellent life experiences that come from working with special adults like you. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So you want to tell them what's happening? All right. Dr. Garrison.
So our next conversation will be Mrs. Hendrick Nora, and we will talk about our HBCU opportunities. Again, every spring break, I want to say, for the many years, just like our band, we've been taking groups of our students to different tours. And again, to me, that again is notes to our student achievement. Outside experiences is very important. And I think we do an awesome job of providing those opportunities for our students. And this is just another opportunity that we have here in our school district. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Nora.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Garrison and President S. Levy, for inviting us and have us share about our HBCU Rising Nights Tour. First and foremost, I am a proud, soon-to-be double alumni for HBCU. I attended Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia, our home by the sea. So I'm proud of this. This is my sister. We are the Hendrick sisters. I'll let her introduce herself and where she went to school.
I am a proud graduate of Xavier University of Louisiana, in New Orleans, Louisiana.
So this is year 10 for us. So we are our proud Beloit Memorial Purple Knights. Left for about 10 years. We caught each other. She moved back home. I came back home. I was like, okay, we're going to come home. We're not going to come home and just sit here. We're going to come home. We're going to do something for our community and our young people and provide them with opportunities that we necessarily didn't have, but we had people come before us to tell us and show us about HBCU. So I'm forever grateful for those who came before us to share, but we wanted to do it on a larger scale and be able to take them down there and provide opportunities. So we call our tour the Rising Nights HBCU College Tour, and we strive to stimulate an interest among select students and attending one of a private or public institutions called HBCUs, historically black colleges or university. The long-term objective of our project is to develop ways and means to ensure that qualified Beloit Memorial High School students become familiar with the historic mission and become familiar with the location and information about Black colleges and universities and their broad range of high-quality educational programs, extended academic activities, and opportunities that they do provide, just like any other institution. Another objective is to identify students who would benefit, especially from the stimulating and supportive learning environments and the characteristics that are given at the historically Black colleges and universities.
She's just going super fast. I'm going to slow down so you can understand. So a few fun facts about, or fast facts about HBCUs. There are approximately 99 HBCUs now, so that represents a little less than 3% of all colleges and universities. But that small amount of institutions, they educate 50% of Black American teachers, of all Black American teachers, 50% of Black lawyers, 40% of all African Americans in health professions. They educate more than 80% of all Black Americans with degrees in medicine and dentistry. 75% of Black people with doctorate degrees earn their undergraduate degree from an HBCU. We're about to be two of them.
Go ahead.
Dissertation, sorry.
Dissertation time.
Okay, 50% of Black faculty at traditionally white research universities receive their degrees from HBCUs, and HBCUs enroll 20% of Black undergraduate students and award 40% of baccalaureate degrees earned by Black college students. And our Rising Knights facts are that, and this is as of last year, 141 students have participated in these trips to date, and we have visited over 48 HBCUs and have Purple Knights alum at 18, and that's not, I didn't update the 18, we're about at 22 now. Of the students who participated over the last 10 years, 94% of them enrolled in post-secondary institutions upon graduation or are currently college-bound, and of the 6 that did not, the majority of them are pursuing dreams that didn't necessarily require a college degree, as in music, fashion, dance, things like that, or the military. We have a few in the military. Nearly 50% of participants each year are first-time travelers outside of the immediate area, and we have past Rising Knights participants, or we have a past Rising Knight participant giving back to our community with a scholarship that she founded, and she's funding, and she's giving back to our community. We've got lawyers, we've got doctors, we've got educators, and that's not just at HBCUs, because of course we do, but I'm saying Rising Knights participants, our graduates, our babies, since 2012, they are going out there thriving. They are in our communities and making a difference in their worlds as they see at their institutions.
Go ahead. Yeah.
That's me. This year, we will be visiting 10 colleges over, we're taking 2 trips this year. COVID kind of set us back. We didn't do a trip in 2020. We were set, and then we were like, if you just sit down for 2 weeks, we can go. 3 years later. We did take a trip in 2022, but we can only visit 4 institutions. So we want to make up for it. So this year we will be visiting Jackson State University, Tougaloo College, Mississippi Valley State University, Alcorn State University, we've got some graduates here, Grambling State University, Jarvis Christian University, Paul Quinn College, and then on our second trip, we'll be visiting Norfolk State University, Hampton University, and Virginia State University.
So in addition to college tours, I say, what else do they do with 25 high schoolers for a week during their spring break? So we do community service every single time we go somewhere. We've done things for, we went to New Orleans once and helped redo their library, paint community centers, do books for Africa, feed the homeless. We always read to students in schools. So people we know, we like to connect with Beloit alum, where different cities we went to, and see if we can give back to their community anyway. So we always do community service wherever we go. We let them experience cultural experiences, museums, Selma Bridge, monuments, things like that throughout the community. So we also utilize that. And then we have professional student networking panels. So they can talk to current students in college, because now they kind of listen to us, but not really. We aging out. So we let them talk to current students that's in college to get that perspective of what it is, and also professionals of the careers that they possibly want to go into for people who look like them, which is very important. So they can encourage them and then get their information. It's about who you know and what you know in addition to your education. So, our school, we are not the only school to do HBCU tours. All over the country, people do that, and we just said we can do that too in Beloit. We just as good as everybody else. But we think we have one of the best tours. We have people all the time want to come with us or want us to do their itineraries and stuff.
So I'm gonna add, recently we've had people from larger cities in Wisconsin asking us about our tours. I'm gonna say Madison. We've had people from Milwaukee. We've had people in the Chicago area. And we're like, you don't do them there? So little old Beloit is doing things that some larger cities may not be doing. So we're very proud of that. And your school district is doing it. So.
Yep. So we want to just thank you guys for our continuous support. Thank our students, our parents, our community, our school district for all our fundraising supports. We work really, really hard for all the money we fundraise and just continue support in our endeavors to help our Purple Knights be the best they can be as we help prepare them to be college and career ready.
Thank you.
Hold up there. I think there might be some questions or comments. Congratulations, or who knows. Board members, it's open to you.
So I don't have any questions because fortunately I'm familiar with the work that you do, but I could not be more proud of both of you. Thank you for the work that you do. My decision to attend and graduate from Alcorn State University, which I'm so excited you will be visiting. I believe this is the second time. One of the best decisions of my life. So thank you so much for exposing our students.
I just want to say thank you, and I feel so cool that I get to say that I used to work with you. I just really appreciate everything that you're doing for our kids and our community. Thank you.
And so again, I just want to make sure, again, thank you so much for, taking our kids, again, giving them exposure to different opportunities. And I think that's where our heart is in Beloit, just exposing different opportunities for all of our students to see something different. It is our responsibility to make sure that happens. And again, thank you so much for taking on this endeavor, right? And this portion of the conversation is really, celebrating kind of what we've been doing over time. I'm not sure if we came and really shared like this before, and I just think it's in the 10 years. I think it's very important that we note these conversations because our public needs to hear this as well.
All right, so a couple things there. I think you said you're going to Mississippi Valley State University, that little place in Itabena?
Itabena, Mississippi.
Itabena, Mississippi, our home in the woods, they call that, where I had an academic scholarship with a score of a 23 on the ACT. Now, I say that not, to pat myself on the back. Dr. Carlton Jenkins, Dwayne Street, Dr. Candace Link, Woodson. There are so many people in our community. Our history in Beloit is that we actually are the black population. Many of us have family members in Mississippi. And the Great Migration came to work at Fairbanks Morris, recruited to work here, worked the dirty jobs, worked at General Motors and Chrysler. And so there's been a generation of people that worked those factory jobs, but able to send their children to college. And I think that when I see the two of you, I'm very proud of you, recognizing the work that all those other people did with us, but that you are doing that with our children. In Beloit, as you described those 22 different campuses that you all have touched, the countless relationships, the social capital that has been built so that when children from Beloit go places, they have friends in places. They have people that they can reach out to. And this is unselfishly, this is not done just for specific individuals, but that is open. One of the things that I noted when I went to Mississippi Valley State University was, one, how well prepared I was by the school district of Beloit, graduated in 1995, but that there were so many other of my friends that could have gone to school. Even looking at the state of racial relationships, how things are set up in some of the black colleges, at that time, Mississippi Valley State just built like the last school in Mississippi to keep black people and white people separate. But thinking about Beloit, the makeup of our community, and the number of white friends, and we think about the demographic changes in our community, our Hispanic students that are used to being in school with black people. And that on these college campuses, because of how black colleges came to be, and even some of the current setting that white students would not be in those spaces. So I know that all the kids that go on the Rising Nights tour are not black.
Correct.
So I'd like you to speak to some of their experiences. I know that Nightingales also have a play and a role in that also. But just kind of talk about that space. And one of the things I would even say this to Mr. Behrens, one of the things that we are seeking to do as a school district is, it is the people that make a place special. But we are looking to make sure that special things like essentially Ellington, our HBCU tour, that those things are institutionalized. Because when people leave, retire, pass away, move, the good things that all of us in Beloit have recognized have worked for so many people, we want those things to be there. And kind of speak a little bit more about those people from other places in Beloit that are other than Beloit that are so much bigger than us, but they're leaning on the expertise of people from Beloit. Just embellish that a little bit. I like to hear that.
So first, we'd like to address, yes, our tours are open to all students in the school district of Beloit. So there's no bearing on race, gender, anything like that. And this year, we do have a few that are not. It's majority African-American students, but we do have some students that are going with us that are not. And our HBCU campuses look a lot different than they did in the 1800s, 1900s. More inclusive. However, the focus is that you have to want to uplift the Black community and learn and be around. So we make that known in our meetings with the students and the parents. However, they are able to attend and apply, and there is an application process. You don't just pay and show up. There is an application process. They're selected to go on this tour. And then I think that's part of the reason why it works so well. A lot of tours that we've seen, it's just a flyer with the cost, and they say, pay this and show up. So that seems very impersonal. So when we were planning it and we decided to design our tour, we wanted to make it very much individualized to our students, what they would want, what they would need, and then make the process so that they'll be more prepared. Not a sign up. You need to apply by a deadline and turn it in and write an essay, get references, be selected, follow directions, read. That's kind of hard sometimes. So we want to have them just setting those standards. Someone was talking about standards. We grew up under those standards. We want to continue to push those for our school district of Beloit students. So we implement those in our design. We implemented those in our design for the tour. And I've had people, like I said, asking us to do consulting work for their tours in surrounding areas, larger cities, some same size, so yes.
And I know you mentioned the Nightingales, if you don't know, those are our babies. So they do play a major role in that. We do oftentimes get a chance to perform when we go. We were 3rd and 4th grade attending Bird School the first time we left our parents going to Washington, D.C. For America Sings. And so, we were little on a bus with Mrs. Hickman. And so we were like, why can't we do this? And so just singing and dancing and all that is definitely important too as well. So they also get a chance to have that opportunity for our Nightingales too as well, so.
All right. Truly thankful for your work in the district and all that you are doing and the things that you're helping our children to see.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
All right, next question. All right. So, sorry.
You got it. Literacy and math updates.
Sorry about that, Board President. We have now another academic and achievement conversation that we want to make sure that we are, again, bringing this into the board meetings. I've asked our Executive Director of Teaching and Learning Equity to give us a presentation on our literacy and math updates. Ms. Mortek.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. We often present to the Teaching, Learning, Equity and Pupil Services Committee ongoing updates about where we're at in curriculum adoptions or successes that we're having, and also challenges in how we're going about that. So Dr. Garrison wanted me to bring this to the board because we know in our committees we don't always have a full board there, just to kind of bring everyone in the fold of where we're at. So we know with our strategic plan, one of our priorities was the whole child. And underneath the whole child is 3 core areas, and one of those areas is academic outcomes, and a real focus on increasing academic outcomes and meeting exceeding expectations on the state report card. So tonight I wanted to give you some updates of where we're at in our work. I did frame it out to be a little bit of a memory lane of where we were in our work, to show you, because data isn't just something in isolation, right? And it's also not one data point. And we often press upon triangulation of data, and that's really the way to look at data. So you want to look at multiple quantitative data points, testing points, but you also want to lift up qualitative data, especially when we address equity, which is another priority area, and really considering the lens of where education is at now. And what's relevant is that lifting up of qualitative data in order to give voice, specifically BIPOC populations, voice about their own experiences and hopes and dreams for schooling and academic outcomes. So that's been the kind of the body of our work. And so it's not just about data review, it's the story that we tell that goes along with the data. So we began our work in this area of literacy in 2021 to develop a collective vision for literacy in the school district. And literacy isn't just reading. Literacy is reading, writing, language, speaking, and listening, and that's important to understand that because when you're teaching to the standards, there are standards in each one of those areas, all falling under the umbrella of literacy. So what we did as a team, and I have our director here, a lot of his work, and our literacy coordinator, we did something that's called empathy interviews. We did multiple focus groups, and we pulled people together to ask them about their experiences with literacy. So again, this is qualitative data that is informing our work. These are some direct quotes that we had from families and parents and teachers about their dreams and hopes to inform the vision of literacy. I'm not going to read it for the sake of time, but this deck is available in the board updates if you want to look through it. And after we did that, we had multiple pages of responses. We coded all of those responses to have emerging themes, right, which is a very well-known practice in collecting a research in a qualitative way. So this helped to shape our vision for literacy. Very important, because when you're on the cusp of a materials adoption, you want to have high quality materials, right? You want them to be aligned to the standards. You want to have teacher usability, quality text. And we use a third-party reviewer from Ed Reports. It's a third-party nonpartisan group that rates all kinds of curriculums. And so we wanted something that was highly rated. They call it in the green. So it was in the green in 3 areas, but in addition to that, you want to develop a localized criterion. So when we interviewed hundreds of people, students and parents, around what was their vision and dream in 2021 for literacy, these were the additional pieces that helped to formalize our localized criterion. So folks said they wanted cultural relevance and equity, responsiveness to student needs, foundational skills and standards, joy of reading and a literary identity, home and school literacy partnerships, and high expectations for college, career, and community readiness, right? So that picture there is just really showing the connection between the heart and the mind is what it really came to fruition when looking at it. So then we went up for adoption. We made a recommendation for our K-5 American Reading Company, ARC, materials, adopted those with the beginning of our ESSER funding that we used. And I'm really grateful that we did that at that time and place. We've also worked on creating logic models. It's a project management strategy that you can use. And the concept of a logic model is you have an impact goal and then you have inputs and outputs. Oftentimes those outputs are the little micro goals along the way. And so this is a very high level view of our logic model that we have for literacy. It's layered when you look at the implementation plans for our curriculum. And we also have a braided approach to high quality instructional practice, because it's not just the adoption of the materials and they come in the box and you tell people to implement. You have to train people, right, the pedagogy along the way. And so this logic model highlights some of that. So we have a goal, which is in alignment to our strategic plan, that we will have 65% of our students proficient or advanced in literacy based on those internal benchmarks. And why is that? We wanted strong foundational skills, the building of literary identities, right? I am a reader, I am a writer. Very important, especially when you look at the work of Alfred Tatum, which is high-level achievement specifically with African-American males, and then looking across groups. Alfred Tatum is actually on the board for American Reading Company too as well. And then aligned to the vision for literacy. And then those are some of our strategies that we're going to be doing along the way. So strong foundational skills focused, right, grounded in the science of reading, which is ENRI, E-N-H-R-I, is the researcher that is aligned to the ARC Reading Company, as well as scaffolding the grade level ELL standards, building staff capacity. There's been a huge movement on that and a lot of work that we've done over the last 2 years. Very much thank you to Tony Bosco's leadership. And then systematic K-12 disciplinary literacy, right? So across content areas is what we mean when we say disciplinary literacy. And a lot of work done in building coaching capacity. Our AGR funding and title funding support our instructional coach model, our instructional coaches. And then last year we brought in biliteracy coaches into the fold, which are ESL teachers carrying some of that extra feather in their cap to support our dual language immersion and our EL students. Vision for Mathematics followed a similar cadence in that multiple student interviews in our Teaching, Learning, and Equity Committee. I had shared we interviewed around 150 students to ask them about their experiences in mathematics and what their hopes and dreams were, along with other family members. And there'll be more of that to come in spring when we come to the board with a recommendation for materials adoption. We are up for that in our curriculum cycle, and we've been piloting 2 programs throughout this school year. But the 3 lenses in that vision are rigorous and inclusive classrooms, student identity and agency, and coherent and relevant curriculum. Again, a logic model for mathematics, so my director of STEAM and her team have their logic model and what their inputs and outputs are. So working towards 50% of our students meeting those benchmarks. Aligns, of course, to the strategic plan. So how are we progress monitoring literacy in mathematics? So what aspects of the system are supporting student learning and growth, and what parts of the system are not working with our students? We're always asking that and doing that pressure test. And so some of these things that we're looking at, we do learning walks. We do those also with our partnership with instruction partners that you often hear me talk about. We also look at student and teacher focus groups. Those are pulled through instruction partners. Every time we do a walk in a building, they also call a group of kids to get a focus group with them. And then also outcome data. ERLA, which is our benchmark data that comes with ARC Reading Company, math district benchmarks that have been identified, MAP growth. MAP is an assessment that we give, is also benchmarked and aligned to our standards. Obviously, the once-a-year state assessment. Forward actually started today. For those of you that have students in the district that are in the room. Good time of the year. And then looking at those in-product assessments that come with the programs, and then impact analysis through Learn Platform. We purchased Learn Platform, which is kind of like another third-party audit system. During COVID, many school districts ballooned out with integrated tech. But we wanted to see to what extent was the integrated technology programs that we're using having impact. In research, we call that right effect size. So one of the things that, for example, what we're doing is an audit of all of that integrated technology. So one of the big changes we made was going from Dreambox to Imagine Math, and that was because of the audit that we did with Learn Platform. We weren't seeing the effect size that we wanted to see for the cost. It just wasn't cost effective because Imagine was expensive. All of those programs really kind of are. So we let that go, sunsetted it, and brought Imagine, which is like an intervention for math and additional support. And we're seeing really good results with that. So happy about that decision. All right, so let's get to the data, quantitative data now. As we've notified folks, and it was discussed earlier today, we did unfortunately have a downward trend in state data for several years. However, in 21-22, so last spring's assessment, we did see for the first time increased academic outcomes. So we trended upward, no longer a need of improvement district. Not where we want to be right yet, but we are showing beginning signs of improvement with our state assessment. And then that column to the right shows the growth that we had. So we had 3 percentage points growth in ELA, 3.6 percentage points in mathematics, and 9.2 in math and science. Social studies isn't on there because they had new standards, so they don't have comparison data from the state, but it's relatively around the 20%, a little bit higher. Actually, it's our highest. It's a little higher than the science. And those of you that are in the world of school improvement, oftentimes 5 to 7 percentage points is a celebration. So to see 9 percentage points in science is actually something to write home about. Again, not where we want to be overall, but we are showing some gains. So that's looking good. Then this is our internal benchmark data for AGR. AGR stands for Achievement Gap Reduction. It's funding that we get through for our K-3 buildings. And we have to turn in goals for the state in order to receive that funding. So what this demonstrates is you will see the spring column. My teacher in me wants to go stand over there by the chart, but I'm gonna stay over here. So you'll see the spring column, right, where last year, this time in spring. Now back up and go to fall and winter of this year, right? So fall of 2020, so last year was spring, now we come to school in fall, and now we're here in winter. And what some of this data is showing is our students this winter are almost at where they were last spring of this year, or last year. So that shows value added growth. Again, we want to continue to see that type of growth, but we are seeing in our internal benchmark data some real value added, both in literacy and mathematics. This is also something that is quite fortunate for us. So with our MAP assessment, when you look at our fall MAP data, those are the proficiencies that our students showed in reading and math at all grade levels. And then you can see in reading, so we had growth in every single grade level in both literacy and math. Again, we have a lot of work to do to get better, but I have been in public schools for 23 years, and you don't always see this type of growth at every single grade level. So this is really a demonstration of the hard work that's happening across the district. Right, I get to stand up here and report the data, but this is a large collective effort to get our kids and to show value added in growth. And it also helps to be a projection for potentially where our students will test this spring on the state testing. We won't see those results till come next November. Next steps. So we're going to continue to build our data systems and reporting structures, developing high-quality professional learning experiences, of course, for teachers and building leaders. We differentiate those tracks of learning depending on the role that they play in the district. Really, again, providing job embedded and capacity building for coaches. For example, something that we do with our coaches is they will observe a lesson, they will give feedback, and they will record that, and then they send it into instruction partners, and instruction partners gives the coaches feedback about the feedback they gave to the teachers. So that's the type of professional development that we've been doing. Also implementing high-quality instructional materials. Critical. Your materials have to be aligned to the standards. And so we did that with our reading. Now we're coming forward with math because that will be within our 5-year renewal. Also, continuing to reflect on our strategic assessment system, looking into some possible differences in benchmarks for next year, benchmark assessments. So we'll be coming forward to talk to you more about that and reasons why. Really, an opportunity to sync up better with our internal database and SIS. We use EduClimber. So there's just some work there that needs to be done that I'll be coming forward to the committee with. And then the other thing I want to skip down into is expanding professional learning opportunities. I'm calling that in the field learning. And the reason why I'm calling it that is there's this protocol called lesson study. It actually comes from Japan, and it's not necessarily new, but it was never widely implemented across the states. And it allows teachers to observe other teachers. So they do some unit internalization and some co-planning about what a lesson is, and then there's a protocol you follow to watch each other teach the same lesson. And it's amazing when you get teachers out of their classrooms what they can learn from their colleagues. And so that's an approach that we want to bring forward. And then also those instructional leadership walks, we'll be looking into how to dig deeper into those and develop those a little bit more along the way. Any questions for discussion?
Board members?
Sure. Again, thank you, Ms. Mortek, for providing this detailed overview of kind of our academic conversation and two very important subject matters, reading and math. Please note, though, naturally, when we're thinking about a school and academic achievement, it doesn't just touch into, reading and math. There's natural other subject areas that we can report opportunities for growth. As you have seen tonight, and no pun intended, we had conversations about academic achievement that was scheduled for tonight. Just so happened that this was a conversation in a room. I think it's very important to know that we are making some changes here in the school district of Beloit. We know we have work to do, but the work that we've been able to accomplish over the course of this past year and up until now, I think is noted. We do want to keep trending in the right direction. And I think that's part of being in the school district. You're going to have some ebbs and flows. We just hope that those ebbs are a little less, and of course the flows are a little higher, right? And so as we move through a school district, these are the cadences that we kind of have to work through. And so again, thank you to the executive director here and the team that helped put this information together. And again, we look forward to continued conversations around academic achievement here in our school district moving forward.
Yeah. So I'm going to highlight a couple things and ask you a couple questions. One, as a parent, if the school district of Beloit was all 5 stars and everyone was getting a 36 on the ACT, there's that collective experience, but parents are concerned about the individual experience of their student. Academically, social, emotionally, what's happening in the classroom. So on a night like tonight, it is good to be able to have this information. One of the things I'll say for us as a board, because there are so many issues that we have had to address in our district, and there are former board members here tonight and have been here that can attest to what it has been like in the school district of Beloit, that where we are today is not something that just happened 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So to hear you report on the progress that we're making, and then COVID did happen in between, to report progress, that is important. Just as a board, we're seeking stability for the district, and thank you for the work that you did during the summer when we were without a superintendent and still moving that work forward and also these academic goals, is that none of this is going to change even in one school year. But in the end, it still comes down to parents will say, where is my kid at? Is my kid below, at, or above the standard? There was a time for me personally when I was in the school district of Beloit, my mom kept threatening, I'm going to send you to Beloit Catholic if you don't get your act together with your academics. So, you know, things really have not changed, that there are options that people can send their parents, that parents can send their children to, but we are trying to do things for the students that are here, for the parents that are here. I want you to point out a couple different things. So talk about the movement from being a one-star district, because we were a one-star district, but we are not a one-star district currently. We are a two-star district, but that is just one shot. But please talk about that movement and the goal for to getting to meet expectations.
So I'll start that thought. Thank you, Board President Levy. You know, when you're thinking about a snapshot of a test that happens on a day or two, I think people forget that that's what we're being graded on. You know, that snapshot that happens over a day or two in the school year. And no matter what, we want to be better in that day or two snapshot of an exam or test. But we do know that there's, again, great things that are happening here in our school district. And over time, we will, again, make better improvements. Yes, we did go from a 2-star to actually a 2.5. I one can argue 2.5 star, but we did move up this year. That's not noted in a lot of conversations that we're having, because we know that we still want to get better. It does need to be recognized, though. And again, that's part of this conversation tonight. No pun intended. It was just really was what we decided to have conversations about tonight around academic achievement, because I'm hearing more about where we have been, right? My goal is to also start having conversations about where we want to go. You can't leave one without the other. You just can't do that. And so we do still want to make these academic achievements. Naturally, with the reconfiguration, I have to take a little time to share this. With the reconfiguration, it'll be a snapshot of our current grade band setup. Okay, it'll be a current snapshot of our current grade band setup, where we still had the fourth graders still in middle school. We won't be able to see a different a snapshot until our kids are back in the elementary setting. Middle schools are back to a 6-to-8 setup until next year, where we can actually have a different baseline. And so please note that even now, when I came in, I started having conversations that we're not going to lay off the thought of not still trying to do better on this snapshot of a test for our school district. We have been having conversations around what we want the Purple Night Report card to look like. And it's not my first time sharing this. I've had conversations with the administrative team at the board level as well. Like, what do we want to be recognized in as a school district where we can celebrate not just these snapshot conversations, because we do want to do better, but also what are our own celebrations that we want to bring note across over time. So to answer your question again, it's a process that we're working through, that I'm working through with the administrative team, to make sure that we're not only bringing accurate information, but achievement information to the board on a regular basis, you know, moving forward here in the near future, and of course into the next school year. Lastly, I will note that none of this is done as it pertains to increasing student achievement. None of this is done without participation from all of us in the community. Again, we need help from the parents. We need help from our teachers. We need help from administration. We need help from our own leadership team. We need help from the board. And collectively, we're just so much better together than we are apart.
Thank you. That's a great stopping point and my beginning point. So it's about collective efficacy, right? We believe in our students, and together we can do this. And I believe that students know within 30 seconds whether you believe in them or not. And so collectively, how do we move this forward? Now, on a very kind of specific answer to that, Mr. Levy, I think it has a lot to do with structures, systems and structures. So a lot of the work that we've done internally at COLAC is to think through how to build systems and structures. So specifically, when you look at teaching and learning, you have to have systems and structures in place, and you have to have an understanding of K-12 vertical alignment. We've built out a curriculum warehouse That is internally for our staff. We've had teams for the last 2 summers working on that, identifying power goals, identifying common assessments, having materials adoptions, and training staff to get everybody in alignment so that we have coherence across the district. And when you have a lot of change and turnover in leadership, which was an unfortunate thing that has happened in this district, you lose and have a breakdown of systems and structures. And so that's been a lot of the work that's happened from this specifically in this department. And I believe that if you want to see increased in a report card, that is a reflection of a lot of that, because there's coherence across expectations of central office and schools, right, and students and families and teachers. And so once we're all in alignment, we will begin to see growth. The other thing is that, part 2, our focus is growth. So the conversations that we have with our principals and our teachers and our students is about growth. It's not just the overall, at the end of the day, yes, we want overall academic achievement, but when you think about that, you may have seen it, Board Member Levy, because you're in education, there's that 4-quadrant grid, right? One corner is low, right? Low academic achievement, low growth. You can have low, high, low, and then high. And when you focus on growth, that makes a diagonal line that, right, is an increased line that leads to increased achievement. So it's intentional to focus on growth. And when you do data analysis, you're plotting on that 4-quadrant, where is everybody? From a school level, from a district level, from a school level, and now a principal can take that and plot classrooms on that quadrant, and then the individual teachers can plot students. And that intentional focus on growth has the trajectory that leads you to overall academic success. And so that's really also been a conversation that we've been having in regards to school improvement.
And a little bit more about the value added to help people understand that.
Sure.
And the map scores, and go back to the chart with all the plus numbers on it, please.
I like that chart too. Speak to it a little bit more.
Right.
Sure.
Not value added, because you said the other on the other page showed value added and map score growth.
Sure. So, for example, when I look at 3rd grade, and I look in that first column, literacy, when our students came to us in fall in 3rd grade, 9% of our students were proficient based on the MAP, which is our internal benchmark assessment. And this winter, 22% of our students were proficient. So we grew an additional 13 points. So when you think about a tortoise and a hare running a race, right? If you're always just sort of staying at the tortoise's pace versus the hare, you have to have value added in order to close achievement gaps. You have to grow more than what's expected, right? Otherwise, you're growing, but you're growing at the rate that everybody else is growing, and you're not closing gaps. So our idea is with accelerated learning to see growth like this, to close gaps.
So thank you for that. One of the things I will kind of say, and then Dr. Gates, I have a question for you, is we have this academic conversation. That's something that, like I've listed before, I could list again, the things that we have, as a board, have done over the last 2, 3, 4 years to stabilize and do things what are the things that school board members need to do? What are things that successful boards do so they're not causing the problems that their district is having? And from that framework, as you described what the turnover in leadership has done internally, as we talk strategic planning, as we talk referendum, hiring a business director, hiring a superintendent, if you look at a car, people don't often care about how the car works. Sometimes is it fast? How does it drive? Is it fun to ride in? And for us, we know that those things have not been in place, as you mentioned, some systems and structures. But now that systems and structures are being built and solidified, we don't have to talk about a strategic plan and developing one because we have one now. but the conversation can go to being the monitoring of the plan, the reporting out of the progresses that we are having. Dr. Garrison, can you talk a little bit about the Purple Night card and the those standards and those things that you want to identify that you've talked about, which will go on to extend this work?
So one of the things we've been talking about is, what do we want to be known for here in the school district? Of course, the report card is a part of every school district's note that they give from the state. But again, my goal is to also have conversations about what do we want to be known for in our district. And there's been a lot of great things that our district has done over the past, whether it be CTE conversations that we have here at the high school. Now we have academies at the high school as well. Whether it be conversations around academic achievement from the aspect of, like I said, from music, from our arts, whether it be even academic achievement from things that our kids are getting involved with from the community perspective. Regardless, those things can be reported on, and we can actually share those themes in a productive way throughout the school year. We have 4 departments, major departments, and of course we have teaching and learning, we have pupil services, we have human resources, and of course we have business services. But all 4 of those areas could have something that could note in our Purple Night report card, whether it be in business services from the aspect of saving money, pupil services for how we actually are working with our students and different matters outside of teaching and learning, and then even human resources, how we're using our own staff to actually meet the needs for all of our students. And so those things can be captured, again, in a Purple Night report card that could be given in a report form to the school district outside of just our report card that we get from the state. And those are some of the things that we are working towards and moving forward with. Hopefully I answered the question.
Thank you. Yep. Committee and other board reports. Committee chairman, you can speak to your board committee. Board member Anderson, you ready?
Yes. Sorry about that. I had to unmute myself there. But for the report, I just wanted to say that the committee was unable to meet last time due to scheduling conflicts for the committee members. But we will still plan on meeting at our normal time next month.
We did meet. We met in between, so we didn't get you connected there. But that meeting did take place. Brian, can you speak to what we did in that one?
Yeah, we just went over the monthly financials, and it was a fairly short meeting. We didn't really have a lot. We'll meet again before our next full board meeting on April 4th.
All right. Teaching, learning, equity, and pupil services.
Hi, good evening. I'm the chair for Teaching Equity, Learning, Pupil Services. I just got to pull up my notes here. So we had 2 presentations this evening. One was about restorative practices and one was about summer school. A couple of things about restorative practices. I came prepared with a lot of questions and comments to that one. So I want to highlight and kind of elevate a few themes that came up. We've certainly heard this evening about the need for addressing learning behaviors, human behaviors, interactions with each other. So I'm a reading interventionist. We also just heard a little bit about SOR, like science of reading. I heard some rumblings that there'll be a science of math coming up pretty soon. And all of that is rooted in the explicit instruction to children about how to do things that they otherwise wouldn't just intrinsically know to do. So for example, in science of reading or in any kind of intervention, you break things down to their basics, you give students practice in a measured space, and you build student self-efficacy, which is, I'm gonna get nerdy, but it's one of the highest rated skills that a child can have. It's like the biggest lever that you can pull for student achievement is student self-efficacy. But that's not just contained to academic achievement. Self-efficacy, the belief that you can do something, is is integral to anything, any undertaking that you do. So since we certainly know, and as Dr. Garrison pointed out in our committee meeting, the reason that we're moving forward with Fidelity, with a full implementation of restorative practices, is because it's been identified that there's a disproportionality in our discipline, which is right in line with the rest of the state of Wisconsin, and so we need to act on that. So I'm very pleased to say that restorative practices, much like I just described, builds student self-efficacy and breaks down for children who have not yet learned how to always be good to each other, how to be good to each other, and how to be good to themselves. When I was a teacher in the district, I shared in committee, I was very privileged to be able to go to UW Green Bay to be fully trained in restorative practices and restorative justice, along with Amanda Celine, who's still a teacher within the district, and Todd Greco, who was an administrator at the time. And it was the most transformative experience I've ever had as an educator. I know, looking at a couple of educators here in the room that I've either taught with or taught alongside of, I know that they would probably, I guess I won't speak for anybody, but we've all seen the good that it does to break things down for kids, to give them a chance to try and learn. You teach a kid how to ride a bike, you teach a kid how to read, you teach a kid how to do math, right? You got to teach a kid how to be a human being to each other, right? And so given that, just to kind of summarize from the presentation, what I would like to point out is, of course, the presenters pointed out how the restorative practice initiative that we're going forward has been recommended to go forward to the full board with New Route is both proactive and offers repair. So everyday classroom practices like building safe community with each other. Chris Behrens was here a little while ago talking about his jazz band success with building like a safe culture of success and high expectations has brought us to essentially Ellington. Is it 11 times and 15 times?
11 and 15.
11 and 15, it's a lot of odd numbers there, right? 11 times in the last 15 years. That's not something that's just limited to our jazz band, and so that proactive approach is key. We also know that that's not enough. We know that families come to our district with a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different experiences, a lot of different needs. And so it's our job, because our values here in the school district of Beloit are to teach to whole children, is to meet the needs of those whole children, also their families. And so there's also that repair element. Repairing connections, or even establishing them between people is a pretty powerful thing that not even all adults can do. And that's something that we all have to kind of continue to learn. And I'm really glad that my 3 kids who are in the district have exposure to be able to learn those skills. It's aligned to our SEB, or social emotional behavior curriculum, the undertaking that was recommended this evening. And while there's not a direct correlation to the screener that we use, which is called the SABRS, certainly there's indicators on the SABRS, so we'll actually have some good quantitative data to measure whether or not this is an effective undertaking. It is aligned to state competencies and has been shown through multiple research going back actually to 1975 that going away from, let me make sure I have the wording right here, except I forgot my password, so you're gonna have to give me a hot second because I got locked out of my computer. There it is. There we go. Harmful impact of exclusionary discipline. Research going back to 1975 has talked about the overriding negative impacts on students. And so in order to be successful, so far we heard in our report that there's been an abundance of professional development for staff to build that capacity, and that going forward into the next 2 years, there will be even more professional development and capacity building, not only just for staff, but also a great deal of community outreach for families, working with students directly, coaching and engagement. A couple other things that came out of our committee meeting on that topic is, this may seem like pretty elementary, but every child is different. And it's essential knowing that to make sure that we're properly tooled, trained, and resourced to address and correct the disproportionality of behavior and discipline issues that we have in the district. Not just by messing with numbers, certainly, which I know has been floated before, but certainly by teaching people how to be people and how to build a society. So, society is made of people, and given explicit instruction on how to build people up, we build society up. And without that explicit instruction, people tear each other down, and that tears society down. So it's something that I take very seriously, and I think it's really commendable, the amount of work that our People Services Department has put into bringing this to us. This is sort of a year zero, and I'm really excited is the wrong word. I'm very hopeful and happy and proud to see this come forward, and I'm hoping that when it does come to our full board for approval on April 4th, that my colleagues here share that opinion. Anybody have questions on that before we get to summer school? Good? All right, summer school, also very exciting. Again, there's that capacity building again. Our team was able to find the weeks and attention span that it takes to write, was it a $780,000 grant? So we're waiting to see if we get a $780,000 grant to support summer school, which would bring even more really fun features, like potentially, driver's ed was mentioned as a hopeful. But even without that $780,000 grant, that I'm, again, thankful that we took the time to write, we have not just the academic offerings that are going to be also based on intervention data, which is awesome, but also the, I'm going to mess up the thing, but it's like the we stuff, like what is it, the wellness and, I can't remember, but it's really cool, and Ms. Moratek's going to come up and help me because I forgot to write down that acronym.
Sure, we have the A path, which is the academic path, and the WE path, which is wellness and enrichment.
Yes, okay, cool, wellness and enrichment. A couple things I'd like to highlight in addition to the already impressive offering for wellness and enrichment. There are going to be potential internships available for students through our community partnerships with places like the Welty Environmental Center, other groups, I think it was like Boys and Girls Club, right? It was talking about like doing some reading tutoring. There'll be transportation provided. It's going to be amazing. Board member Winfield was excited and would like to sign up himself. And if you too would like to sign up your students, there's registration open on April 21st online, and the 2 sessions run from June 20th to July 7th with a couple of days off for the holiday, and then from July 11th through July 29th. Any other questions on summer school? Cool. It was a really fun meeting at Teaching, Learning, Equity, and Pupil Services, and we look forward to coming back on April 18th for another one. So thank you.
All right. In the governance committee, we did meet, continue to talk about things that build the governing capacity of the board and grow board community relations. Specifically, we've addressed the strategic plan and the work that needs to be done at the Board of Education level. That's needed to help actualize the priorities of the strategic plan. We addressed each strategic priority of the strategic plan, including the referendum and that work that is taking place in the district in referendum, reconfiguration, this Purple Night report that you'll hear more about as we looked at academic standards and redefining READY, our engagement policy, the number of meetings that are taking place to make the community aware of what the district is doing, culture and leadership, as we addressed our board norms, clarifying our roles and responsibilities with the superintendent, and our work with our consultant, Drew Howick. Yep.
So the legislative update, my most recent legislative update is included in board docs under March 7th, regular board meeting. So I encourage anyone who's interested in that to please check that out. And the policy committee will meet on Wednesday, April 5th at 5:30.
All right. We're on to the consent agenda. Is there anybody who needs to remove anything from the consent agenda?
The minutes, please.
Okay. So minus E. Is there anybody to make a motion for approval of the consent agenda minus E?
So move, minus E.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Board Member Winfield and seconded by Board Member Miller. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The motion passes unanimously. E, approval of meeting minutes.
Just a quick note, it states just above number 4 that President Levy read an email from the girls soccer team regarding incidents like this. I don't believe that was the case. I think you made reference that our soccer team had experienced an issue similar to what our boys basketball team experienced at Muskego, but the statement I believe that you read was something that you wrote and not an email.
Right, yeah, I was reading prepared remarks to talk about the Muskego incident, but mentioned our girls basketball team, and I know that something else like that had happened to our soccer team. So with the amendment of the minutes, is there someone to move for approval of those minutes?
I move approval of the March 7th regular board meeting minutes as amended.
Second.
Moved by Board Member Amy Levy and seconded by Board Member Megan Miller. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Our action item for tonight, bank authorization, 6A.
So I'll be real quick with this one. Not much that Mr. Shady will have to say. Welcome, Mr. Shady, to his first official board meeting as our new executive director of business services. Naturally, when we have bank opportunities, when we have new people come in, we got to transfer records to different people. And so this should be a quick action from the board, but I'll turn it over to Mr. Shady.
Yeah, thank you. The bank requires a corporate authorization agreement to be adopted by the governing body of the board for each of our bank accounts. So those were scanned into board docs. You have that available. Unfortunately, we'll have to do this tonight to get myself access to the accounts. And then if there are changes amongst the board or board officers here, the latter part of April, first part of May, we'll need to be doing this again in a few weeks. But just to be forthcoming on that. If there's any questions, thank you.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, that was Board Member Brian Anderson and Amy Levy, seconded by Amy Levy. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Spencer, did you vote?
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. All right, future board meeting dates. We'll have to read this. Governance, March 28th, 2023, 5:30 p.m. That may or may not be reposted, we'll see. Business Operations and Finance, April 4th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. Human Resource, April 4th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. Regular board meeting, April 4th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Policy Committee meeting, April 5th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. And Teaching, Learning, Equity, and Pupil Services, April 18th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. And we are now on to executive session. A motion may be made and a vote taken to convene the Board of Education into closed session pursuant to Section 19.85, parentheses 1, parentheses C, relative to considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Board Member Megan Miller. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Board Member Amy Levy. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Shope, can you provide us a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Brian Anderson,
Aye.
Joanne Winfield,
Aye.
Amy Levy,
Aye.
Sean Levy,
Aye.
Megan Miller,
Aye.
Spencer Anderson.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, and we will be adjourning from closed session. Good evening. Thank you.